So it is 6:14, June 24th, 2025. This is a meeting of the zoning bylaw review steering committee. I think we have everyone present except for Sarah, who's absent today.
That's right.
So the agenda today is really going to, I guess, focus on 5 and 6, kind of where we left off at the last meeting. So before getting into that, I think it might be also helpful to just kind of realign what our thought is for the next few meetings in terms of putting together articles for the fall. That I was just mentioning to John and John before you came in. I had a conversation with town council the Wednesday after we had met last week, just to kind of go over some of the changes or some of the questions and adds from the sections we reviewed, and then kind of get a better understanding from her of what was feasible, because, you know, we have, I guess, we're looking at, 5, 6, 8, 9, and then 17 is part of 5. And for the time frame we have, and it may probably be a better idea to kind of shift focus to looking at section 6, 8, and 9, and saving 5 for its own public hearing, or its own town meeting, so to speak, just because of 5 really almost needs to be broken up.
Complexity in the,
Very much so,
It's
yeah.
complex, and I think it's also the word, controversial. There could be
although I'd
changes.
rather get with that one done first.
I know, right?
Personally, but,
Yeah, I'd
But
love to
yeah,
get through
so-
5, but I think it's such a complex, as you said, chapter.
And it-
I'd rather spend, because we have till August 19th. It's a lot. If we can hold that off till next May, I
I think
think we can look through
We'll
it
have
big
a lot
time.
of time.
if we look at it as this, it's June now, and we, try to have a monthly meeting.
Yeah.
Warrant for the spring closes in January, so there's a lot more time to really make sure that however it's broken up into how many articles it needs to be,
Yeah.
it's done correctly. Just because, the summer is tough, and I think 8, 9, and 6, well, we'll get into 6, are probably a little more straightforward to some extent. But that being said, we can still discuss it. Where I kind of comes from too is talking to, town council. She said, obviously, everything is kind of our decision in terms of how we would want to take it, but usually when doing a zoning rewrite, she always recommends like definitions and table of use for the end.
Yeah.
Just because the table of use is so interconnected with every other element of the, or every other section rather of the bylaw. But, that being said, let's start, I guess, going into some of her questions and edits and see if we can kind of make that first pass, I would say. So, do we want at this time go into 5 first or 6? Just because 6 is a little bit shorter, and we know that that's probably more.
Consider if we hold, I think if we hold 5 off anyway, the next year we can go through 5, just bullet points,
Yeah,
and then we can get some planning direction for when we do go into it after.
yeah, I agree.
Maybe an idea.
Yeah,
I also think that all the other articles may fall back to 5, so we should do those changes first, and then we wouldn't have to do another change. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
everything's related to 5. I think it falls back to 5, right? So,
Yeah.
I would say, maybe just let it go, and maybe we can make a note that this would affect 5 or something like that, but I would say,
yeah.
do the other articles first.
And section 6 is definitely like that, right? There's a few points in there that she
Yeah, I saw height and
references.
dimensions, lot, building per lot, stuff like that, so it,
Yeah,
Has she done like a cross-reference, noting where each piece of 5 would reference a different section?
probably within the zoning diagnostics
Yeah.
report, they might have, that'd probably be the best bet. I think we even noticed too that I think there was a section in, what was it, set 9, that actually should have been within enforcement, and that was something that it wasn't in the zoning diagnostic until town council took a closer review, and we realized, oh, that's something that probably should be moved. So,
I think I recall when we did the last zoning, updates, that, the amendments that they added previous to that, the amendments never saw the consequences of another bylaw. So
Yeah.
they might have been concentrating on this, so they made the amendment, but then it could affect one or two other things, you
Yeah.
know, so.
Yeah.
That's why you really need to cross-reference all the time and see.
Yeah, because I think John made a good point probably a few months back on frontage on a corner lot. He had read one section that said your frontage setback comes from both sides on a corner lot. I think that's what most towns have intention of. But then, and that was in the definitions, I think it was. But if you go back to chapter 6, it says, oh no, one's your front, you can have your set side back on the other.
Right,
Which
right.
brings it forward, so I have a feeling someone wanted something in the front yard on the side, and they changed it, so the two sides contradict each other.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of that in it.
Right, yeah, because I know Norwood has frontage, you need, it's
On both.
frontage from the front,
Yeah.
you know, on both sides on a corner lot. So you would
Yeah.
have to keep back both.
And I
You
think that's
can't-
what this originally had, but then someone changed it in another section to allow for it. Again, I'm assuming, usually when that happens is someone wanted something in their side yard. I would prefer to take that out, that one points to go back to being consistent, because corner lots are tricky, and the fact you can go so close on the side.
Frontage, so it was the side, it was the setbacks.
What's that?
The
It was the
setbacks,
setbacks, because the corner
Yeah, the
lots, they said
setback.
both street lines had to have front yard
front yard setback.
setback,
Right.
Yeah.
rather than a front yard setback
On
and
the
a side setback.
But then afterwards, you say they
Someone
adjusted
changed it.
Right, right.
And that's the
Because
problem.
it didn't seem fair that you had to have the setback, the frontage setback on both sides, right?
Well, it is
So-
uneven, you're right.
Because I know, there was, I don't know if one of the inspectors or no, the assistants was new,
Mhm.
and he approved it like he could pick one
Either.
frontage and setback.
Yeah.
And it ended up, and one of the other inspectors went out for the final. He said, wait a minute, this ain't right.
Yeah.
You don't have the setback, proper setback on both sides. And then, I think they got a variance out of it
Yeah.
because.
But still, it was
But,
about Hillborough.
yeah, but it's tough. And then the thing was too, I think if you had proper frontage on both sides, you could choose which address you wanted
So
to have.
we have
right?
that here, if you have the legalized frontage on both sides, you get to choose which is your front.
Right,
And that's where that stipulation came in, is you get to choose, say, if this was your front and this was not a road, you got picked, this is your front, this technically became your side.
right.
The downside is, say if you're in an RB
That
zone,
could come-
now you come within 15 feet.
Yeah,
Or you could put a pool within 6 foot of the side of the road.
right.
So that's where it got from, but the original way it's written in the definitions is, even if this is your front, you're 30 feet back, and you're 30 feet back off this side as well. But then it got tweaked. So we have some that people see the house here, but there's something in the side yard, which looks like, so if you look at, there's a good example on Washington Street, down near Bird Street, there's that man has a nice garage, he rebuilt he took down an old barn and put it back up on his property. But technically, I think he is, I can't remember the name of the street, but his side is Washington. He's like 20 feet back in, but it looks like it's right on the street,
Yeah.
but it's his side.
See, that wouldn't be in conformity to the rest of the neighborhood, because you could have everybody with the proper setback, and then all of a sudden you get this guy
So
that's.
that's where it falls. That's why I
Right.
think
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah,
original
yeah.
was, for that example, if you were going down Washington Street, everybody's lining up, but if your house is on the corner and your street is, say, Polly Road, you could push your house all the way left.
Yeah.
And now it's offset with the rest of the house, but because your address is on the corner. So that's why I think the corner lots were brought in, that your setback is the 30 feet from the front off the roads on each side of it. And that was the intent of it, so even if you're on this street, you're
Right.
keeping conformity there, but you're also keeping conformity with this street here as well. But it was changed back in the day for some weird reason.
So we should probably keep both of them.
I think it would be
Frontage
cleaner on
setback,
both
just
roads.
so it would conform to both
Yeah.
neighborhoods.
Exactly, that's why,
Because another thing is corner clearance.
yeah,
If you push something 15 feet towards the side, you're gonna lose a lot of your
Your view,
sight
yeah.
line down the side street or whatever.
yeah.
And I think there's enough issues with that haven't been fixed in town anyways, the corner clearance.
Yeah, so to your point, that's what where it's rewritten in different areas. It's weird. We
Yeah.
can clean that up as well.
So that would have to be a change with the definitions as well.
So, well, the definitions I think work. It's in chapter 6, it gets, or 9, I think it's 9, it gets tweaked. So I think it's.
6,
Probably
Is it 6, it gets tweaked in?
well, that would be lot frontage determination.
Yeah,
So like the definitions references 6-C3A, so that would need to be changed anyway, because it's referencing, you know, if we're changing I guess the labeling to be consistent, it would, you know, it doesn't go, it's not 6C, it's 6C, it's 6-3.
Yeah.
6C3A,
Yes, I don't even think it's six, it is, no, so so that reference 6-3C, or 3A, but,
uh, 7B.
there it is, yeah.
Where's the
It
7B?
jumps around,
Yeah.
there's
I
a
have
few,
now,
Oh,
from
front yard
last time
set-
I
yeah.
asked the question.
yeah.
That's weird, front yard setback.
Because it jumps, that's the thing is too, I'd like to kind of put them all the front, because, so say you have the 6-3A, then you have this under 7B, but then you go to corner lots under 9-12, or, oh, sorry, under 12.
You'd
That
wanna
goes
put them
in-
all
On
together, so.
Corner
you-
clearance,
so
yeah.
You don't have
Yeah.
to flip pages, you don't have to
Because
flip
it's
pages.
3 there, then your definition, so if you're only looking, you're gonna find it, like,
Yeah.
same with accessory structures, if you want accessory structures, it's 4 different places in the whole book.
Consolidate this.
Yes, things
So-
like that, so you're not jumping all over the place.
There's nothing worse than looking something up and you have to flick back pages, and then you don't remember what you read on the other page.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, my God. I hate
Or even
that.
what we get to is we get architects who are out, like, from different towns, they'll read one section, do the drawing, and they'll come into us and we're like, yeah, you got to do this as well. Now you're costing the people money to go back to an architect
Yeah.
to get redrawn for something that they missed on a different page completely.
So,
That's interesting.
let me just.
6, 244.
6:44.
That's the start of it.
Yep. So, I guess not to jump ahead too much, but let's back up a little bit. So the start of 6, just so we can clarify here.
Yep.
A lot of these are kind of, I would say more or less changing of the formatting to be consistent with the rest of the zoning. Removing the whole 6A, 6B thing and just having it go to 6.1.
I thought we had, we were going to continue that. Wasn't that the question we asked last time around? We were gonna keep it alternating number, letter,
Well,
until we got such time as everything was sorted out, and then we could go all numbers and stuff.
well, yeah, we talked about making it all numbers, but there is, where is it, section,
You mean instead of going number, letter, and number?
Well, I think some towns have it 6.1.3.2 or something,
all numeric.
Yeah.
all numerics.
Ours starts with like, so sections 1 through 4, it's section, so I'll just go section 2, section 2.1.A, which is one way of doing it, and then we get to 5, and 5 goes
It's
5 and 6. Yeah,
What's the what's the letters first?
they start the whole like hyphenated letter, so like 5A, 1A.
Yeah.
So I think this is the problem, right, in terms of trying to make changes in piecemeal, is that if we want to change it all to be numeric, do you wait to the end and then change it all, or do you?
Yeah, you
Yeah,
probably
yeah,
are, because if we change something now, saying 6, and we reference something in 5,
Mhm.
It's not gonna reference the right
it
word.
won't reference the right thing, so we'll have to wait till the end.
We'll have to have a mixed,
So should we
Right.
leave so should we leave the formatting the same for now?
And then do one click.
And
And then do one clean sweep instead of like,
sweeping thing, and tell you, all we're doing is
Swapping out.
numbering
Yeah,
the numbers so they're more logical. So we're
Okay.
taking out the lettering of the sections and replacing them with equivalent numbers.
that makes
And
sense.
that's the only difference we're making,
for that, yeah.
and cross-referencing any references throughout.
It's almost like a Scrivener's error.
Just doing
Yeah,
it,
it's
doing it
basically
once
something like
instead of
that.
trying to basically,
Do it each time.
if we did this now, it'd be, all right, it'd go to, 6.1.A, but then we're just changing it again in like, a year to,
Yeah,
so just leave it as is.
I
For
think
now.
I know.
that's safest.
My plumbing code is crazy because it goes, like, the section would be 10.03, and then it's a 1 in parentheses, then a lowercase letter in parentheses, and then we would go to a 1, and then we would go to a letter, and then we start going to Roman numerals, like, you know, yeah, right, oh my
Yeah,
God, it's like,
and,
oh,
It's kind of why I like the numeric, just because it's just all numbers.
yeah.
So it's all just 1.1. So that's a good
The
point.
only problem, no, even though we can do it, I was thinking if it got anything right above J or something, that's what something with 6K, and you'd have to go like 611. But if we're separating them by periods anyways, it shouldn't matter, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, the table's a whole different thing too, right? So, I mean, not that we're doing this now, but the table of use almost needs to be its own kind of,
That's him.
almost leave the table of use as is, except for the initial.
The old headline.
So I'm gonna put that in there now, just to kind of leave formatting as is until the end.
Yeah.
That helps from just kind of, because if we bring forward 6 now and not 5, then we're just leaving 5 as the one that's not in line with everything else,
Yeah.
and it's still just, I don't know. At the start of 6 though, so noting, the formatting is one thing, that would kind of impact some of the changes that she has referenced here, so I'd highlight that to kind of revert back to, I guess, that hyphenated, 6A or 6B instead of 6.2, 6.3. So B and C of section 6A now, that's taken from, it's just section 5, but that's actually section 9. We discussed that last time on the first page, so that's just where that comes from.
Oh,
This one and this one, yeah.
So,
oh, the non-conforming
are
issues.
you in C right now? Is that where you are?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, so with that
Which
first,
she added in there, so that must be like, if a lot is non-conforming, and it's, they want to change it, they could take some of that lot to add to another lot if they want to, like, say they came in for A and R.
Well, so this is
So as long as it's non-buildable, they could take some of that land and give it to another, like,
Yeah, so
Just a
she,
portion of
on
it?
the non-buildable lot, she's referencing, if you do an A and R, every A and R has to be stamped as not a buildable lot. Because an A and R is just, you can take any lot you want and chop it up, you could take your house and chop it up into 70 little pieces and A and R the whole lot. It means nothing, it just means you're chopping it up. And even if you chopped land up that was good and you made it all to conform to zoning, even under an A and R plan, it still has to be stamped as not buildable. Because when you do an A and R, you're doing it on a computer in an office, make it easier, you're just going off of what document you have. That's where an actual site plan is, you go out and you stake the ground, you measure up exactly, and it's more clear.
right, so, what I'm thinking is, there is a non-buildable lot that's sitting there, and you really can't do anything with it.
Yeah.
But as long as it's stamped non-buildable, you could do an A and R and take part of that lot and give it to another lot.
Yeah,
Right.
You can
Or
always-
or you can make 2 non-buildable lots out of it, right?
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah.
okay.
What some people do too is they'll do, because even if you do an A and R and you file an A and R, it's not definitive, but if you record a deed swap, then you could because you could have a small lot that's non-conforming and it's got protection under mass law, under 1 and 2 family. You could say, oh, I have a piece of land here, Ed's gonna sell me, you have a big enough lawn, you're like, after the weekend, the heat, I don't want a big lawn anymore. You could sell me a chunk of your land. Now, by me combining that to my lot, it's still non-conforming, it's better, but by doing that, I could take all protection away from the 1 and 2 family. Even though you think you've improved it and you made it closer to conformity, you actually have created a new lot. You'd lose all your protection.
Loses the game
It
plan,
loses all your
okay.
protection that you thought you could have even with a building a house on it.
That's good to know, that,
Yeah. So that's where you gotta be careful, because I know everybody loves the laws here, or the closer you are to non-conformity, the better.
Yeah,
You are, depending on how you got there. Sometimes getting there can actually take away all protection on your house.
so getting closer isn't necessarily the best thing, you need to get there.
Yeah, it depends how it goes, because I usually tell most people, being wrong in Massachusetts is the best thing you can be. Because if we had the same lot,
Yeah.
and your house was in the dead center, lot size perfect, I had the exact same lot, but my house was in a setback, I can get away with more and do a lot more than you're allowed to do it. Even though your lot is perfect, I'm wrong, I have more protection than you do,
Interesting.
that's where mass law gets scary.
Yeah.
So I always tell people, yeah, having a wrong, because people are always like, oh, I'm in a setback. I'm going, that's a good thing. You get a lot more rights and a lot more protection by being wrong.
So it's too late for me to make my lot non-conforming, so I can't get away with this stuff.
So, we talked about this last time, we're fine understanding that those two sections are moved from 9 to 6? Okay. Section, I guess, 6.6-A2, not to confuse you, because we're going back to the old formatting, reference the as-built plot plan. This is again that kind of,
This is what everyone should do, and then people forget to do it.
yeah. She references having that move to the enforcement section. This kind of goes back to that other concern with the other article about,
That does
Well, we-
make sense, actually, because that's,
yeah,
that comes into play when Jim comes to inspect it.
yeah.
He needs to know what's actually there, not what they said they were gonna build, but what they actually built.
They did build, yeah.
Ran into that across the street from me. They built a house and they didn't build it quite in the right place, and it was in the side setback.
Oh, okay.
So, do we not agree with moving that to enforcement?
No, I think moving it to enforcement is probably a good idea.
Okay.
Because it would be, that's where it's gonna be applied, it's
Yeah.
gonna be referenced.
So,
I suppose a reference, let me think, is there a way of referencing it? Maybe referencing it somewhere else, or referencing it to go back to section 3 where it's explained. I'm just thinking, someone should be aware that it's needed when they're doing the building, but maybe that's a site plan section, maybe? It should be included.
Well, the site plan already
That's
not
has,
for
really-
every
there's a
yeah,
list
thing,
of
no.
everything you need in one of his site plan. Like, you give a list of what's required in one of his site plan, so.
I mean, you mean one of its.
Well, no, this would be fine going into enforcement, I think that's fine there. Because this portion's got enforcement, but to your point, like, I think if I'm reading right, is under section 13, under site plan, it does state a list of everything you need in one of his site plan. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I think you're meaning to say one of them is the as-built plan?
As-built, sorry, yes, the as-built.
Okay, yeah, okay, if it's already there, yeah, it's somewhere where someone's gonna see that they have to do this.
Yeah,
And not just suddenly have it pop up on them or something.
yeah, no, and again, we usually
I don't wanna
enforce
take it
it.
away from making sure it's in their face,
Oh,
you
yeah.
have to do this.
Yeah, no, that's it,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
So
there,
it could probably be taken out if it in fact references it somewhere else, we don't need to.
when I'm thinking of structuring of the actual, how the article would be written, so what we're looking at is 3 articles, however, there's elements to section 3, an amendment to section 5, which we'll get into, and then,
Potentially, there's
Potential.
definitions that could.
and the definitions as well, so it's not, it's a little cumbersome, but it's also,
It's
there's no
necessary
real-
to keep the links.
yeah, and there's no clean way to do it, you can't just leave it there and then get back to it, it's almost like the article's just gonna have to have, it's not just one amendment to section 6, it's gonna have to reference multiple sections that are gonna get changed as
Yeah.
part of the article. And that's the same for
Because
section
we're getting
9.
to points where these things all tie in together, yeah.
Yeah,
Make
So
cross-reference.
would it be easier for you, under enforcement, this right here, how to,
Honestly, whatever's clean, like, because from my point of view, I don't need to know where it, because I actually do. We ask that, because again, once someone puts a foundation in the ground, we're getting an as-built. No ifs, ands, or buts, because they're not
Yeah.
going ahead to the, like, especially commercial, you're not getting to the framing
right,
until you do it. Residential, yeah, you can keep going ahead with the frame, because it's moving quicker, and you go at your own risk. So far, I think since I've been here, only one house had to cut his foundation back.
so how long has this been in, this can't be too old, is it,
This-
too recent?
No?
That one has been there since 2008, or 12 when they rewrote it.
Okay,
It
because,
could be prior before that too.
because I tell you, there was a house that I worked on
Mhm.
And this had to be at least 25 years ago. And the builder, being cheap, had the foundation put in, and he marked it off or whatever, and then he built the house. Well, come to find out, he goes to do his as-built, right? There was a lot like this. There was a triangular piece like this.
Yeah.
So he didn't have the proper setback. The owner had this triangle that cut into his property, so now he didn't have the proper side setback in the house. And I guess he had pissed the people off, well, excuse me, he upset them so much that they wouldn't sell him. He offered good money to buy it, and they said no. And they had to lift up the house
Jeez.
and move it. They lifted up the house, knocked down
Kinda
the
almost-
foundation.
The case I
Put a
was
new
talking about,
foundation.
only both lots were in common ownership, so they
Yeah.
could just put a jog in to
Yeah.
one of the
No,
lots.
'cause since I've been here, we've had two houses. One, we cut it on the as-built at the beginning, they cut the foundation up to the ground level and built a second one in.
Yeah.
And then the other one was the one that went in front of you for the variance for the garage. The
Oh.
gentleman built a two-bed garage, and for some reason he twisted it, and the corner's in the setback. So now you go by his house, there's a 45-degree cut off his garage.
I think there was a house on, is it Hemlock Street or something down there? There was kind of a modern one years and years ago, right off of, between Bird Street, I think it is, and East Street, that little cut through, is that part of Hemlock? You know how it zigzags?
Yeah, I'm not sure which one.
Is that
Hemlock
Hemlock?
does zigzag.
There's
I'm
hemlock,
not-
there's seed or cherry over there.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know where you
It's
are.
the main road, you know, when you come
Yeah, hemlock.
Yeah.
Hemlock and you got a zigzag onto Bird, on Bird and then
Yeah.
continue on. And there was a house right down there. It was kind of like a modern type house, and I think he had, I remember, he had to cut the corner off of the house or something to, for this, to get back into the proper setback.
Yeah. Wow.
Alright.
So, I mean, okay, we're all kind of understanding on those on those, like, I call it 6.1, 6.2, but that first page. The next page goes over, I guess, general provisions. Well, she's just, I can say general. Not sure if that's, any concerns with that, but essentially those two new sections, it would be 6B1 and 6B2. Obviously, if we're gonna keep the formatting the same, we'll just reference the old formatting of the
Yeah.
current formatting. And then the actual date the table was last amended and state after the adoption of this provision. So that goes back to kind of what we did in section 4, right? So anytime we make a change, having the correct date, that's their recommendation, and that's fine. And like we did that only like a few years ago, really. That was, when we changed the highway business district. However,
oh, yeah, the circle.
the table of dimension regulations, and there's no changes we're proposing, I guess, currently within that table, but Jim talked about, possibly making changes to the highway business district. I know highway business, the central business district, in terms of the height.
Yeah,
Is that, where we have,
I think it is something, because it's really, the ones we have down there even now are overpowering
Yeah.
the center. You go in the center, you don't see the stores on the side, all you see is the big buildings behind the stores.
so, I'd like to find why 52 was the number. I think we talked about this a while ago, and I don't remember off the top of my head why it was changed to 52, but the MBTA, zoning, which we just passed, we capped it at 50. And I think that was just because it's a whole number. I don't know why 52 was chosen, but we also had the provision of not more than 4 stories. And so maybe this is an opportunity to just kind of have central business district, instead of having it 52 feet, 50 feet, but not more than 4 stories.
Well, that's gonna limit it too, because what's the standard floor, 10 feet, 10 stories?
Give or
10
take,
feet?
yeah, because you're,
Yeah.
again, egress wise, you need 7, 6, most people go 8, 9 feet in commercial. Then you got between joists and everything, you're looking at 18 inches or 1.5 foot, so you're usually around, you can be anywhere between 11 to 13 feet with the floor plus the
Okay, so
ceiling height plus the
412
floor.
is 48.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it seems like a high
yeah,
number, right, in terms
does.
of, but the stories, I guess, is really the the factor that.
Yeah,
comes
because
into
that's
that.
gonna determine how many units are in it,
Yeah,
Yeah, because no one's gonna make a 13 head height
yeah, I
ceiling.
mean,
Yeah.
very vaulted ceilings.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, me and Jim talked about this earlier, just only because we're thinking of, one, it's been a topic that's kind of come up
yeah.
a few
I think a lot of
recently.
people are
Um,
interested in
And if we're not,
keeping things looking like they were.
yeah, and if
Four
we're,
stories is fine, we don't need that. We're
Yeah.
we're not a 5
We're
or
not
6 story
Boston.
town, I know.
and if we're
Um,
not,
you know,
building
so,
skyscrapers,
yeah.
if we're trying to think of, you know, we're not addressing section 5 right now. I know that provision with the whole 3.5 was in section 5, but if this is a way to at least kind of put
Knock it
some,
down.
yeah, law put some sort of provision now and not, you know, recognize we're not leaving it out there hanging. We're trying to make some changes now. We'll come back and reword and hopefully have better, you know, verbiage for section 5, but limiting the height to 4 stories at least.
I think that's a
little
good
bit
way,
better regulation.
because that will kind of control, even if we left chapter 5 at 3.5 times the commercial,
Yeah.
you're not going to do that if you can't get up to 5 stories. You're locked at 4, so the
It's
commercial.
consistent with what we're doing in the MBTA,
Yeah.
right? So, I mean, that's,
Exactly, yeah.
So with this overrule, this would be more strict, so would this overrule the CBD district? Like, say we change this at the fall town meeting.
We go to
Right.
54 stories. The MBTA has it at 50
We have a
feet.
3, and then if you have a commercial on the first floor, it's 4.
4.
correct?
the way around. So I think we do have it at 50, I'll just bring it up right now. So I
I
can-
don't remember us designating a height, but I thought it was
So-
3 stories, and if we had commercial on the first level,
Yep.
Yeah.
you could go to the 4th story, right?
No, so it's 4 stories or 50 feet in height.
For the MBTA?
For the MBTA, for the central core. But the provision you're talking about is if
Right,
you
right.
have mixed use, where are we?
Is that in,
Yep.
That's what we did at,
So in mixed use, just wanna get my bearings, where are we? Oh, 5 stories, 60. So that
in
was,
the MBTA?
if, so in order to encourage,
Commercial.
commercial, that was the provision that was put in there. We're all, at the same time, that was,
we're encouraging commercial, yet they're not being used.
no, I know, but that was, I think the reason of putting that in there is because at the time, especially, you know, not,
I suppose it's not really give you any extra space.
no.
Well, no, except that they can do a mixed use, whereas they couldn't use a full residential, could they?
If you-
Central business.
So right now, so I mean, if we're thinking about the mixed use and central business right now in the existing zoning, there's basically no residential on the first floor and the commercial space, basically, whatever that is, 3.5 times that you like to have
Generates,
for the
right.
residential. The way the MBTA was written is that you know, you essentially just need to have commercial space facing, being publicly accessible. There was no requirement like, hey, you need to have, you know, so much commercial space to so much residential, it's just
The
whatever.
First floor. okay.
Yeah, whatever commercial space you have, it's just, it has to be publicly accessible, so you don't need to have this sea of commercial space, you could have a 2,000 square foot unit or a 1,000 square foot unit,
Right,
whatever.
right now too, our zoning at the 52 feet
Yeah,
is still more stringent than the MBTA zoning, because the MBTA was 5 stories, 60 feet. So
Right.
we're actually at 52 under our underlying zoning, so
which we've granted relief for
Yeah.
every,
building it down.
yeah.
But yeah, so that's what I'm saying, we can go to 50 feet, we're reducing by 2 feet, and we're just adding the fact of 4 stories.
And that's still consistent with the MBTA, except for the mixed use. The mixed use was put in there in order, yeah, I mean, I think the thought behind it was to be,
I thought we did 3 stories in the, before with the,
Well,
so it's for the outer
The
core.
outer
mixed
core
use
The outer core is
depends on
consistent with
mixed
the
use,
GR.
yeah.
okay,
It's
Um,
2.5
It's
stories.
the 2.5 stories,
right.
or 35 feet.
Well, I think the mixed use is good, because then, you know, I'm feeling that if you have the residential upstairs, that's gonna offset,
No.
so the whole burden wouldn't be, you know, of the rental, but the whole burden would be on the commercial, so that would really help it out, like, especially if you bought a building and you wanted your business in the first floor. You know, you could afford it much easier if you had the rental up above,
Right.
so.
And that's
I think
probably
that's
what
they
the
really
idea
looked at.
That's the
behind it
idea.
was.
Huh?
Unfortunately, now, no one's really going that route.
No.
Right,
Everyone's saying, okay, I don't really have anything I wanna put there, but I can build 6 or 7 units up here, which I couldn't do any other way. So I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna make the money on my 6 or 7 units. And I don't care if I never rent this place out.
So,
I mean, I think somebody would come along
It'd be
eventually
nice
to
if that
rent it,
was
but
happening.
the
yeah.
thing is, like down South Node, you know, they had a lot of businesses, bars and stuff down there, and they closed them all up, and they made apartments, and it just doesn't look right to me
on the first
to,
floor.
to have the residents on the first floor, you know?
Yeah.
And a few of them, they didn't even change windows or anything, you know, they just
Yeah.
Put a
put
hou-
shades in it or
door.
something, you know, it's not, it's just not a good look, you
So
know?
it's really kind of what I mean, obviously, it's really up to the developer, right, in terms of if they want to use the underlying zoning, we still have the whole, right at the time being, we still have that 3.5 provision, but we're now capping it at the height, so now they have to weigh that cost benefit, and then if they look at the MBTA zoning, they're like, okay, well, I get to go up to 5 stories, but my density is more regulated.
Yeah.
Right, so that's the other kind of thing with that, is that your density doesn't increase, you just get the provision of a height increase if you want to use it, not that you have to use it.
Right.
That was just kind of, I guess, trying to put there to incentivize mixed use, if someone, for whatever reason,
'Cause I think that
couldn't fit within 4 stories but could go up to 5, not that we want to see that, but in general, that's the thought, but the density's still regulated where it's not as regulated.
Yeah, 'cause that'd be
Under
nice
the-
and clean, and with what Spring and West has coming. That's
Yeah.
a 5-story building, if we limited that to 4.
If you limited that to 4, that would have been great, because
Yeah.
if that's all they wanted was residential,
Yeah,
they could have done that, but, well,
well, the unit count wouldn't be the
the
same.
unit count would be the same, because it's in the outer core, and it's a.
They
well,
basically have 3 floors of residential, right?
4.
They do have 4 floors?
So it's a deceiving building, so between Spring and West,
Is it a half
there's
level?
like 13 feet of a difference. That's why if you come in on Spring Street, you're parking at ground level. If you come on West Street, you think you're parking at ground level, but you're actually on the garage roof, because it's a 2-story parking lot. So it's deceiving.
I thought Spring Street was higher than West Street.
No, West Street, on top of West Street, once you start going up,
Go
you
down
go,
towards
it's
the-
deceiving because you go underneath the bridge, but then you start going up. So
Yeah,
at the
right.
top, at the back of that lot where you drive into the plan, you're actually parking on the roof.
Still can't believe a fire truck gets under that bridge.
Yeah, it's squeezed in. So that's where something like that would be perfect, to be locked out at 4 stories.
Yeah, I mean, that's a project where it's a whole different thing, because if it was done under the existing zoning, but we had capped it at 4 stories, yeah, you're able to reduce the density. But just because of the limitation in the height, but if we kept it under MBTA, or if they permitted under MBTA and say they wanted to do mixed use because they wanted to have 5 stories, well, that lot is still limited in density, because we have it on the outer core. And not to, pick on one property, but that's one that's
Right,
kind of funky,
right.
where
Which
it's,
would be good. You'd lose a
Yeah.
floor off of that, you'd probably lose, honestly, you're probably losing if you keep.
we're
the
not
commercial-
losing anything now, it's already
No,
permanent
not now,
closure.
but something like that would lose roughly 20 apartments, which would lose 80 parking spots, which would probably take that parking
Yeah.
away, and it's just a parking lot, not a 2-story building. So that's where that would come into play handy.
No. Um,
I remember we had, the building behind Jimmy's Pizzeria in East Walpole, right on
Mhm.
East Street there. And that ground floor has really been almost
It's been
vacant,
emptied forever.
vacant the whole time. And, that's a mixed use, he had to have the commercial on the first floor in the apartments, and, shortly after we approved it, maybe a few years after we approved it, he had asked me, he said, I can't rent that thing, I wanna change it, I wanna turn it over to residential downstairs. I said, good luck on that, But, you know what? He could rent it out to an office at, below market or something, and still,
Yeah, he can't get, I've talked to Jimmy.
well, below market, but, to a commercial,
Yeah.
like say a lawyer, real estate, or something like that.
Yeah.
Cheap, and still take some money into it, so I don't know if, sometimes they could be bullheaded on something like that and
Well,
not
this is
rent it cheap,
also-
but get something for it,
Yeah,
So that area, I mean, so it's business now, it would have to be done as a mixed use to have the residential component. But just thinking of like multifamily, like obviously, you know, this is more of a section 5 discussion and probably more of a controversial discussion, but we allow multifamily only in the GR, but the regulations with it, in my opinion, are just kind of silly, right? I mean, you have to have a 50-foot buffer around the building, which is basically cancels out most properties in the GR. Beyond a few other elements, but that might be a situation where if we look at that for section 5 is, you know, do you want to allow multifamily in the business? Probably not, but at the same time, like, it's a discussion, right? Or do you want to, East Walpole's a whole different thing, right? East Walpole, you could almost look at as its own rezoning initiative, really. I mean,
How
that's,
do we go with,
yeah.
like they did with the park, and do we do an overlay in that area, just on East Walpole, that area? Like, do you go down that rabbit hole?
I kind of like that idea, but I know that's more of a separate, that's a larger process,
Yeah.
right? Because I mean, you have existing, I want to say 1 families or 2 families on
one.
Washington Street, kind of across from Hollingsworth and Vos, but they're all in LM.
Yeah, they can.
So you can't do anything with those other than
Well,
keep them in the.
you got a ledge there anyways.
True.
You can't,
But if you were to,
build anything
if you were to
there.
put them in, say, like an overlay district that allowed for residential with certain provisions, maybe somebody could put a more,
Yeah, because if you had a house there and you want to expand, like put an addition on your house,
yeah,
you're going for a special permit for a non-conforming use.
yeah.
And at that, you can only go up to 50%. That's the only way you could add, I think that's why none of those houses have been touched over the years.
Yeah.
It's because you can't, you can't increase the residential, you're not allowed.
You do have that ledge, right? You have like a, it's almost like a
Well,
cliff right behind
I
it.
think
because you
back,
got, development
Yep.
behind it, it's all up top of the hill.
Indian estates, yeah.
Yep.
Indeed.
well, I think back then, everything was dictated by the businesses down there, like Hollingsworth and Vos and Birds, and I think those were all the workers from the factories that
Mhm.
lived there. Just like on Plimpton Street, it was all the executives from the Plimpton Foundry there and stuff, you know, so the,
And kind of like Old West Street too.
yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for Kendall
Kendall.
Mills and stuff
Yep.
like that.
That thing too is, to look at too, I maybe might bring for the next meeting, is just when we're tweaking the districts like business, limited manufacturing, industrial, we do have weird spot zones in this town. We used to have it plopped in the middle of all residential neighborhood too.
Yeah, so this
Weird.
is kind of, I have a separate project working with the Economic Development Commission, and we have our consultant, which is MAPC, Metropolitan Area Planning Council, doing a study of our commercial and industrial zoning districts, both from use standpoint as well as just how well the uses there are compliant with what's actually within our zoning. And so I'll forward it to you. I actually have it on the website if you're interested. They've done an analysis of just like the background information right now, and it's pretty interesting. So that process, while we're doing that, is kind of hopefully gonna come away with recommendations, not just from, you know, how we can interact with businesses, but also zoning recommendations to be part of, you know, changes to section 5. Because then we have a, you know, better idea of, hey,
Well-
should we rezone this
Yeah,
district?
'cause
It was explained to me years ago that, when we talked about the spot zoning, because sometimes these business areas, industrial, commercial, they were hard to get to because you have to go through all of the residential, but it was explained to me that we were actually, like, we started out as an industrial town.
Oh, yeah.
And it was because of the Neponset River and the drop, and, what were there, 7 major dams, I think, 6 or 7 major
Yeah.
dams along the river.
Oh.
But it zigzagged through, so
The jump.
this is
Yep.
where the business was, and it just doesn't pan out now for what we're looking at, you know, so
Or
Yeah.
it's tough. I
When
mean,
the town-
it's too bad we couldn't do a swap.
when the
You know,
town,
say,
when the
all right,
town
that
was
residential
younger,
land over there, we're gonna turn you commercial,
it was
then.
still
They may not like
horseback.
that.
wagons.
No.
You weren't driving to Norwood to pick up your groceries,
Yeah.
you were going to the shop down the corner
Right.
and getting your groceries there. And so they had the little shops
Yeah.
spotted around, the mom and pops.
Yeah, like, you know, it's an industrial town, I actually still have the plan in my office of Bullard Street on the Norwood line, and it has probably 500 homes built all down Bullard
Oh,
Street
yeah.
and into Norwood. Just all little estates that were planned in 1942,
Yeah,
and then everything kind of went, World War and everything went down.
Camp lots or whatever.
Yeah, they were huge, just housing estates for all the workers.
Planned
in Norwood
development,
and
kind of off of like
Baltimore.
Nickel Street in Norwood.
Yeah.
I've seen, it's like Westover Estates, right, or something like that?
Yeah, it's huge, it's like 500-600 homes just being built for all the workers.
Yeah.
And then World War II happened and all kind of went kaput. But yeah, it was 100% industrial zone. Because that's it, just a, I think if we are tweaking some things, we have to look at where they are, because again, on Diamond Street, you got there's a factory there in the middle of all residential. You got High Plain Street, they're doing a building all surrounded by residential.
Yep.
You got 52 School Street, it's just plopped in the middle of all residential, the
Yeah,
old
yeah.
school up there. So we have some weird
There's
lots
a few
around.
select areas where I think if you made a change, I mean, I know we're kind of off topic, but if you made a change, I don't think it'd be as controversial, just because of what's existing right
Yeah.
there. Like, I'm thinking like Old West Street, there's a portion of South Street,
Yeah.
like I said too. Obviously, School Street, I'm not sure that property owner would be thrilled, but at
No.
the same time, the neighbors might be. But it's, I don't know, it's interesting, right? Because it's just, stuff changes over time, and I think by and large, we have much more of a residential presence around areas that were commercial. And so,
Because that High Plain Street across the street, that was rezoned to residential, where the homes are, the newer homes on the corner, because,
Yeah.
there was a supermarket that
Roach
was looking.
Brothers or
Yeah,
someone's
Roach
looking
Brothers,
to
there
get
was a
in.
supermarket that wanted to
Trying to
get,
get
that was
Oh,
all
yeah.
commercial in there, so it,
Someone shut that down quick. We don't want the Roach Brothers, so they made it residential.
yeah.
oh, love the Roach Brothers.
Well,
That's a nice supermarket, yeah.
Walgreens or something else was
Yeah.
there too.
But not there.
Not there.
Not in my neighborhood,
Yeah.
the usual.
So, Jen, before we kind of move on, does anyone have any concerns if we may include that change to
No,
the
I
height?
don't like that.
Okay.
Um,
I mean, the justification too is also it's consistent with what the MBTA has, right? So, I mean, that's not, you know,
So 50, because that's what the resident, that's what.
50 feet,
50
limit
50
4
feet,
stories.
more than 4 stories.
Yeah.
More than 4 stories. The other one I was looking at, we were looking at too, was
Yeah.
the Highway Business District.
Yep.
The minimum front yard setback is the 50 feet, but it's got that footnote number 9. And that's
Oh,
what
yeah.
kills, you can't have any park and you can't have anything. So it's kind of weird, like Highway Business is designed to have, that's
Stuff
where
in
you
the front
want all
yard.
businesses. So to put a business there and you're not allowed, like, the building being back 50 feet, I get.
Mm-hmm.
But not be allowed to put parking in the front 50 feet kills a lot of business and turns down a lot of business coming to the town. Because if they can't park in the front 50 feet, they're not coming, you're putting it at the back.
Yeah.
Which most of that butts up to residential, you don't want the parking in the back either. I'd rather see it all out front. So I was
Yes.
thinking, do we tweak it that,
Tweak the footnote.
Yeah,
tweak the
because if you-
footnote that if you're, because it goes through kind of different,
Yeah, we keep the building off the road.
keep the
'cause I know
building,
that
but
was-
can you go, like, no parking within the first 20 feet of it? And then you can put your parking in there. Because like 50 feet is a huge chunk for all landscaping. No parking, no
So
nothing.
and the 50 feet, like you said, would force a lot to the back of the lot,
Up against
which
residential.
would
Affect
affect,
the
interfere with the residential. So
Yeah.
if you put the building back there and everything up front, then
Yeah,
you would be protecting the neighbors, the residential
It's
especially.
like, kind of like an inverse of like a downtown, right? The downtown, you want the buildings on the road, you want the parking in the back.
Yeah.
Realistically, if you're on the highway business district,
Yeah.
it's residential behind it,
Yeah.
so building in the back, parking
Yeah.
in the front.
'Cause I know from talking, like, I think that was originally put in there because they didn't, really put- like, Norwood is the auto mile. They didn't want to put all the cars, they want to look like a showroom with all the cars up front. But like 30 feet back, 20 feet, 30 feet back is not bad, so like bid cars right there near Big Y,
Did
Starbucks,
they get a variance or something?
they got a variance to come to 30 feet.
Well, it's
So
kind
they're
of,
still set back in pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's kind of like a halfway provision, right? I mean, so it's like, we understand there's a reason why that was put in there, but 50 feet is excessive. It
Yeah.
knocks out a lot of properties from being redeveloped.
Yeah.
But 20, does that kind of provide a little more wiggle room while also keeping that, you know, don't want to look like Norwood
You don't
in
have cars
terms
on the
of cars
road,
basically
but
on the road,
like if we keep it to 20.
which happens no matter what.
Yeah, but
so.
you know what, if you had the 20 feet, 30 feet, you're gonna maybe attract some of businesses. Do we really care on Route 1 what type of business? We want the business for the revenue,
Personally, I
right?
wouldn't
Yeah.
care.
Right, so
Absolutely.
that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we want to tweak, if you could tweak footnote 9.
Would you say?
well, 9 isn't so much 9, I think it's the number that's in the table, because you can see there's 9 from like 4 places, but there's 15 feet, 50 feet, 50
Yeah.
feet, 25.
So that's why I'm trying
It's
to,
not so much
Another
tweaking
footnote?
9, it's tracking how much that number is.
Yes, that's what I was thinking, is if in 9 do we tweak, so like if you read through 9, the last 3 lines, it literally, like it goes limit of manufacturing, industrial, a minimum of 10 feet setback. Do we stick in another line there going, and on highway business, we can reduce it to 30 feet? Or do we take footnote 9 off of highway and put a footnote 16 in and write a new footnote for it to say the front 30 feet? Will we tweak, which
So,
is easier?
30 feet or 20 feet? So parking within the first 20 feet, or no?
No parking within the first 20, that's what I'm saying, with 20 feet or 30 feet, either's better than 50, I think.
Yeah.
Like 20 feet I don't think is bad, because line of sight, once you pull up, even at 20 feet, you got plenty of room to line of sight looking down Route 1.
I also noticed too, if you look at footnote 9, there's a reference to subsection 6C.
Mm-hmm.
Other than uses permitted under subsection 6C, which I'm like, is that incorrectly identified?
Well, 6C is the special conditions, and
Special
there are
condition.
certain things in there probably.
Yeah, okay, yeah, maybe you're talking about the exceptions.
Really isn't anything there.
I almost,
so how would you change that, Jim? How would you say change it? Because this says, all right, so the building has to be 50 feet back, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in that 50 feet, you can only use it as landscaping and
Landscaping.
drives and stuff like that,
So
right?
that,
So, would you change the language, or would you?
or would you give the whole footnote on itself? So we have footnote 9 there,
Yeah.
do we write in a new footnote 16? That's strictly just for that says no parking within 30 feet of the, 20 feet of the road?
specific towards just, because yeah, if you're not changing the 50 feet, because you want the setback to be
Yeah.
50,
Right,
you
right.
really can't change 9, because now you're impacting
The other two.
business
The
and
other one,
industrial.
So like he
So do we
said,
made a 16 and just go, in this district, you need at least 30 feet,
Well,
and word is similar to 9,
so
No parking within,
30 feet of the,
your question isn't so much how far is the building setback, it's what can be done within that.
right, so,
The front
and see,
yards.
did you read the 9? It's limited to
I'm
what
reading it.
landscaping and flagging and stuff
Flagpoles,
like that, but you
yeah.
can't do anything out there
You're
or
not allowed to
display any,
park.
you can't
No
display
reference.
anything out there,
yeah,
right?
you can't even park
So-
in the front.
So, all
And it
right,
may
so
work
the
for,
only, the
like-
only thing I go back to is, what would you really need for a proper setback for sightline when you're pulling out? I know, Norwood to me
Yeah.
is one of the worst towns. When you're coming up out of something, there's always something there,
Yeah.
and you can't see, well, actually to the left.
Yeah.
What's coming, okay? There's a sign there, like, we have the minimum height, so we can look under the sign.
Yeah.
Or the minimum setback, so we can see in front of it. So, I would almost say, nothing more than,
So we have a provision in this for,
If we-
like, especially under corner lots, for sight line, and it says anything like 25 feet back along the road can't be more than 3 feet high, say like a
Right.
fence or something if you're on a corner lot. So we could do the same here. Instead of being 50, go down to 25 foot, no parking within 25
within
foot.
25.
Right.
That gives you plenty of room to drive up to the edge of the road and be able to look
But yeah,
down.
there's no
I
connection
would
to
be
like
okay with
section
the
8.
25 or even 20 feet, as long
20
as
feet, you can see.
we can limit the height or whatever is in that, grass strip or that buffer, so
Yeah,
it
we can
doesn't
do that.
affect the sightlines.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
especially
like
on
we
Route
have
1 where the
language for
cars
like
be
signage,
going kinda
right?
fast and
Signage
stuff.
and highway, that has to be like kept,
Yeah.
monument signs that had to be kept low.
But there's also that provision in section 7 that basic, I'm trying to just get it so what I'm talking about. Public safety. So in section 7, under general regulations, F, there's that whole basically sign, including temporary signs or just illuminator. By reason of its location, shape, size, or color, interfere with traffic or obstruct the view of any official traffic sign, traffic signal, or traffic marking, flashing or animated signs. It goes back more into lighting here, but I think that language in terms of shall not, by reason of its location, shape, size, or color, interfere with traffic or obstruction of use. That'd be the one thing, I guess, within that 25-foot setback on the highway business. Someone's gonna have like a pylon sign there, but realistically,
Right.
but that
Yeah.
still kind of kicks back to section 7 where it can be
And the pylon
located.
signs have to be higher.
Pylons have to be higher, but like if it's a
Yeah.
monument sign or something.
Exactly, yeah. And then same with the fences kick back to their section where it says anything in the front yard
Mhm.
has to be 75, if it's over 3 feet,
Yeah,
has to be 75% opaque, you can see through it.
yeah.
So we have other provisions that we can use, we can word it that way.
So I would say go with the 16 and make it the 20, 25 feet or whatever we want, but also add language for the sightline,
Yeah,
right? And put it right there so they don't have to go to a different section to see it, you know, so
Yeah, we could say
that footnote could be its own, even if it's the same language as we have
but not
in
take some
section
of the
7.
pieces out, 9 saying only flagpoles, lights, signs, and then as long as it doesn't affect sightline. Because then that would give us, even if in the section of the code says,
So no parking within 25 feet of the front yard setback,
I would say 25 feet's good.
cuts it
I
in
mean,
half.
what were they looking at bid cars? Just for
they had
instance.
30.
They're 30?
They're
And they,
30.
were they happy with the 30 or, no, probably?
Oh, no, they're still, we've hit them with multiple fines because keep pushing forward, but it's a steady income for us to hit them with fines, so I'm not too, but yeah, no, they were looking for closer, because obviously they're car dealerships, so they want the cars out on the
Yeah,
road,
yeah.
but we've kept them back. But they asked for, there was 50, they asked for 30 and they got it. And I don't think if you go past them, it's not imposing, like it still looks well back off of Route 1.
It's situated well,
I would say the 25 would be good,
Yeah.
would you? I mean, look at the
Yeah.
other one, where S&E used to be, they're parking on the grass.
yeah.
Out there, with, they're not 50 feet back, they're parking on the grass.
Yeah,
out
they've got
front.
4 well, they had 5, we make them, they had 6 actually, did a monster truck one day. We've made them remove them, so the 4 spots have always been there. So I don't know how they got them, but unfortunately they're keeping them.
So
But any extra cars are moved back in.
if you want for that though, I could check what other regulations have in surrounding areas as well. I mean, at least what Foxborough has, what Sharon
Yeah,
has.
no, no.
No, no. Yeah, that was always fun. Talking to car dealerships.
Huh?
Going to car dealerships, having
Yeah,
them
yeah.
move their cars
Yeah,
back, yeah.
Well,
Well,
I mean, even if you look at Republic, the employees are parking in the front, and the customers, they're within
2 feet.
10 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the two, is I also find too, driving on 1A, not being mean to Norwood, I live there, but you're going down there, the car in front of you all of a sudden slows down because they're trying to figure where you're turning in, because they can't see, because all the cars are parked along.
Yeah.
You can't actually see where your turning is, next thing they're handbraking in there. So I think, yeah, like 25 feet, it gives a good, it was more inviting to businesses, knowing they can,
It kind of, you know, when we brought this up, I think, to the planning board a few years ago, that was kind of the comment. We initially wanted to reduce the front and the side. We ended up
Yeah.
just reducing the side. And the reason for the front was concerns with, well, we don't want to look,
like a.
Like
car
another
dealership
town.
All the way.
but that, you know, that's also the building. So
Yeah.
if we're having the building still set back, you know,
But yeah,
this is kind of at least kind of a halfway measure to, you know, alleviate some concerns
So we're
with
saying
businesses.
keep the setback for the building at 50, but alter the wording
Allow
to
parking
allow parking
25
25 feet
feet
back.
back, yeah, as opposed to 50
Right, so
feet.
Yeah.
get rid of the 9, get rid of the footnote 9, make it
Well-
more than 16 like you were saying,
Yeah,
and then put the language we want, the 25 feet, and then
Well, I would
the
keep
restrictions
9.
what can go there.
Only, I would keep 9 only because it all, you know,
Oh, yeah,
it does
Applies to
ref,
another
yeah, we're saying keep a 9, just make
Oh,
16.
nine.
Take 9 out of this one, but we're keeping 9 for these two.
the references
Oh,
having
yeah,
6
yeah,
feet,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
you
yeah,
wanna have
okay.
landscaping,
Yeah.
you wanna have
Yeah.
trees, you wanna have.
Because it entices you, I think it entices you more to park then in front of your building, not push all your parking to the sides and the rear,
Mhm.
which is all
Yeah.
residential back there.
Yep.
Okay. All right, and I'll double check the wording of Foxborough, Sharon, Plainville, and Rentham.
I'm wondering why we have a larger number for limited manufacturing as opposed to industrial. Is the limited manufacturing the more
Oh,
heavy industrial section, or
that's interesting.
what is the definition of that?
Limited manufacturing and industrial are very, very similar in definitions.
That's a whole nother problem.
That's another one we had actually with KW Steel that time.
Yep. And why is LM at 50 feet and industrial's 25?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, I think the reasoning may have to do with industrial is usually a little more isolated, so it doesn't impact
Yeah.
residential
I
as
mean,
much,
where is
whereas-
most of it, like, industrial road up there, something
Yeah.
like that, so. And it's not affecting any other neighborhoods or anything, there's not a lot of traffic except for businesses, right? Business use up there, so. Where else is our industrial?
Our industrial,
The swamp.
the
Half
swamp,
our-
yeah,
Half our
yeah.
industrial is in the swamp.
Yep,
Yeah.
pretty much. Yeah, I mean, it's mostly, Norfolk Street, you got,
Half the industrial zone. is-
So
Business.
industrial, yeah,
Yeah.
and also an so the 50-foot setback kills highway business, but they literally stated out in 9 that if it's a new manufacturing industrial, it's 10 feet.
oh,
So it's not, so that's where it gets tricky. On highway business, it's the 50 feet, and you have that 50 feet setback to park, for any parking. But industrial and limited manufacturing, under 9, it actually highlights them to say, no, they only have to be 10 feet for no parking. The building has to be 50 feet back in limited
wait a
manufacturing,
minute, so.
but the parking can be within
Okay.
10 feet. So it does allow it there. So that's why I was kind of saying, we could leave the footnote 9 there, we just have to change the wording in 9 to say, like, limited manufacturing industrial, a minimum of 10 feet setback shall
So-
be landscaping.
It's kind of weird where it has, so like, where do we have? We have business, which is, the 9. Business, highway,
Well,
business, limited manufacturing.
9 is limiting what can be there, but the other ones, the 6 feet and 10 feet, are saying you have to landscape these sections.
Yeah.
You can't just leave it grass, really.
Yeah, so that was the killer of it, is it shows the business can go to 6, limited manufacturing and industrial go down to 10, but they don't mean highway business, which means,
Not 10, it just the first 10 feet has
shall
to be
be.
The first
landscaped.
10, yeah.
There's still no parking within
There's
the.
still no parking or anything, right.
Whatever, but, yeah.
They're saying there's gotta be a buffer, really,
Yeah.
against the street, too.
so do we
That
change
would-
9 to all of 9, so we don't take the footnote out and put them all at 25 feet?
No, just, so they're all, the front setback's different for
But so limited manufacturing is
15,
50.
right?
Highway business, they aren't making anything there, they aren't really
Yeah,
mostly, yeah.
manufacturing anything, they're selling things.
Yeah,
So they're not constructing anything, there's no
by and large.
noisy things,
No
smelly things you have to
manufacturing,
keep
it's
away.
sales.
Yeah.
Right, so-
Yeah.
This is just, they wanna keep the building so it's not sitting
Yeah.
over the street, I think. But the idea is, in some cases, you wanna actually screen the building back there so it's not noticeable, I guess, which is what they're doing with that 6 feet and 10 feet. They're saying you have to put a buffer there, basically, of something. It doesn't actually spell that out, but that's the
The intent of it.
impression I think I'm getting out of it. Trees and shrubs. I think they're trying to hide those buildings so that they don't distract people driving by, I guess. Highway business depends on driving by.
Yeah,
You don't want to block the view
the
of the
view
building.
of what's there
They
to draw
want
you in.
to attract people in, yeah.
Mhm.
But yeah, adding a 16, that would be similar, only allowing the
Specific.
parking closer to the,
Yeah.
Business.
for highway business, yeah, because that's, needs the that's trying to attract things, it wants to put its,
Yeah.
its products out front where
front.
they can be seen,
Mhm.
really, yeah.
Hmm.
So what if, say you had a company that was, sold playground equipment, okay?
Yep.
Local would
Could they
work.
display that within the 25 feet?
Nothing,
It
it's
would-
only
it would-
landscaping,
So nothing
signs.
but landscaping the
Yeah,
25 feet?
It's that first sentence of 9, so no purpose
Right.
other than walks, drives, landscaping, flagpoles, lights, signs, canopies for gasoline service stations, and fences as permitted elsewhere in this bylaw can be within that front
Yeah, it's
setback.
like no open displays.
Yes,
or
I think
something.
that's the intent was, yeah, not to pick on Norwood, but that was intent of, your goods are your car sales.
And, do you want
That's
to
what I
allow
want in the
for
back, then
open
you want all the cars
storage
wedged
within
up on
that
the road,
25
so
feet?
So
it's the
you
same,
see
but there's
it.
no product allowed out front.
So if that's the case, with the 20, is 25 feet too much or a good number?
I
I
mean,
think it would allow them to bring their product potentially or parking of
Front close enough.
closer to where people
Yeah.
can see them, I suppose, yeah.
But I mean, how much landscaping do we need? Is 20 feet enough?
Well,
Or,
Oh, in terms of the highway
I
business?
would-
Yeah, yeah,
Well, right
yeah.
now, it's
Yeah.
technically 6 feet, right?
So I would keep it that way just for the fact that most of our highway also is in an area 3-4 recharge. So we do need, like, and considering in the highway, you can, what, I think it's nearly 100%
Yeah.
or 90%. You can do, like, you can cover a lot with 90%.
Probably also problematic.
Yeah, so I'd like to keep some buffer that you can put some, your green area there.
Yeah.
I would want to preserve that buffer. I mean, technically, it's only 6 feet though, right? Under 9?
No, so, setback adjacent.
So you have the
well, yeah.
50-foot setback for the building,
50-foot setback for the building,
and
unless elsewhere provided, a minimum of 6 feet of a setback
Shall we
they
adjacent.
don't
In the-
specify
but it goes
highway,
for-
so-
Setback adjacent by the right of way shall be landscaping and planting and trees, and in the limited manufacturing industrial, a minimum of 10 feet goes back. So, yeah, you
They're not
could,
requiring a buffer for the highway business. and
it's just a minimum
the
6
idea is
feet, but
You wanna be able to see.
what else are you gonna put there if you can't park or pave it?
That's, yeah.
You're putting
right.
landscaping of
Yeah.
some sort, yeah.
So it's kind of by default.
Or you're putting a
putting
sign up or something to pull it in
Yeah.
or something. yeah.
Kind of by default, your landscape.
In a way,
Landscaping
yeah,
the
and
first 25
you-
feet,
You don't
right?
have really a
Yeah.
lot of options.
Yeah.
So you could just leave that
Because you
as
could
is, but
pave,
just
technically you
say,
could pave it, but you can't ever use the paving. So why would you waste all that money if you're not gonna be able to use it?
yeah, you want it, I mean,
Yeah, but you'd be spending a lot of money caring for a lot more money in the long run caring for the grass and mowing it and, right?
so would you,
So-
would
If you get a good landscaper, you're all
Yeah.
set.
should the language of footnote 16 be though, no parking within 25 feet of the front yard setback, or parking is permissible at,
Parking's permissible after 25 feet.
25 feet, just to kind of clarify that.
Yeah, let's see, so
Right.
we want to,
Yeah.
Yeah, because, well, so, but to Ed's point then, if we just put parking within the first 25, or the, after 25 feet, then if you had goods or something you want to put, like a playground you put out there, you could put that out, because we're locking out to just parking.
Yeah,
We
right,
just say, after 25 feet, can be parking products,
Free for all.
et cetera.
Almost a free-for-all after that.
Parking and
So
open
Then
lot
you can
store.
put whatever you're selling
Yeah,
out there.
whatever their choice
However you
is.
want.
parking and open lawn storage is permissible after first
25 feet,
25 feet,
something like that,
okay.
or display of goods.
yeah, so you're basically copying 9 and, well, are we gonna, is 16 only gonna apply to highway business then? We're gonna leave the other ones as
Yeah.
is?
I would, yeah,
Okay, so, yeah, we've,
Yeah.
write 16.
If the other ones have
applying
been
it
limited
to highway
manufacturing
business.
yeah.
and industrial, like if you go for the planning board for site plan, you can request a reduction.
Yeah,
So if they say, hey, can we move some product and parking out here, because industrial could be beside non-industrial, but then you could look at it, okay, now I'm against residential, hey, can I get a buffer shortened in the front so I can bring the cars and my storage around front? That's, because I got some big cars did it, they asked the
Yeah.
planning board, can we get reduction? And they were given it, so you still have that option out there if industrial or limited manufacturing wants to come closer, they can ask for it and justify it. So I think that would work too.
Only
So
give me a sense.
if I,
okay, so maybe all we need to do then is take the wording for 9 and say, other than the uses permitted under section 6C3 and parking, front yard setback is to be used for no purposes other than what's already written there. So just add include and parking into what's allowed use. But, we have to include the 25 feet.
Yeah, you put in 25.
And, okay, and
Oh, I-
parking, let's see how we word it.
That's the fun part, I just cause the ideas. You get to word them.
And parking with a 25-foot front setback?
Parking is allowed after 25 feet.
Oh, yeah, or we can do a separate one.
you know, I was actually thinking if we kept the language of the first line of 9 in there, but I don't know if we'd want all that stuff, because you don't want to
You don't
canopy out
need the
there,
rest
so.
of it if we,
Uh,
I
yeah,
would say just a landscape strip, right? That's all we want to see, is a landscape strip for the first 25 feet, and then after that, whatever you want to do, really, right?
So would it be easier add then, so they have obviously limited manufacturing and industrial with a minimum of 10 feet setback shall be,
So we
we
can,
want to add industrial, or sorry, highway business into that, into 9, and say 25-foot setback shall have landscaping provided.
No, because it still doesn't address the first
The
sentence,
rest of it,
right? No
yes.
purpose other than walks, drives,
Right.
landscape, unless you want to say highway, unless you have
So-
footnote, so leave that as is. Leave, I guess, have 9,
so we're keeping just the first,
but have,
Yeah, but if you're only 25 feet back, I don't think you need the walkway, and it's not gonna be a drive unless you're just entering and exiting, right? Landscaping, yes, a flagpole, yes, lights, signs, canopy, no, and then, I guess a gas service station you could leave in there,
Yeah,
right?
but the canopy is for the gas service station. So that's
Oh,
the,
that would,
the canopy is for gas service stations.
oh, okay, all right.
we're
yeah,
basically
yeah, I'm
getting
sorry,
rid
I'm
of
sorry.
everything but the first sentence. So we can get rid of the unless, the 6 feet and the 10 feet, because that's only, not gonna apply to highway business. And we, after that, so keep the first sentence basically, well, we can edit out like,
yeah.
Ed said, we don't need to really talk about walks.
You're gonna need a walk, there'd be a sidewalk out there, why would you need a walk out there and that?
You're right, well,
So I would
So
say-
no
well, you
purposes
might have
other
drives going back to
You can have a
walk. You might have two
point.
entrances coming off the highway.
Yeah,
doors,
okay.
Drives,
So you
landscaping,
might need drives, landscaping,
so
flagpole.
no purpose other than walks, drives,
Flagpole.
landscaping, flagpoles, lights, signs.
And then
yeah.
after the first sentence, say, after the first 25 feet of the front setback, parking is allowed.
I don't think you have to put anything in there, it'd just be a free-for-all, right?
Well, that would
Oh, I see what
allow
you're saying, so we, how
parking all the way up to the
about,
front.
so
'Cause
no,
if
no
what-
purposes.
Well, after 25,
I
this
see
is
what
all,
you're saying.
yeah.
Yeah.
The first 25 feet is allowed to have this, and this, and stop it at that. So
And
then after 25
Because if they want to
is
display,
parking.
we don't, I mean,
Display,
what are you gonna
yeah.
do, stop listing
Oh, okay,
everything?
make
it
So
more
they can
general.
display their
Yeah.
items, or they could do the parking
Kind of work
there.
backwards, not worry about the parking, just worry about
Okay.
the first 25 feet has to
That's all
have
we care about,
landscaping, signs, flagpoles, and leave it at that.
yeah.
Simple, yeah.
Yeah, okay, that
No
would be.
purposes
more-
other
yeah,
than
it would
walks,
give
drives,
more
landscaping,
flexibility.
flagpoles, lights, signs, canopies for gasoline service station and fences as permitted elsewhere in this bylaw within the first 25 feet
Yeah.
of the front setback,
Right.
and just leave it as that,
That.
because then it's
That's
like you're
clear.
not defining parking, so
Right. you're
parking is
not-
allowed after that 25.
And then
Yeah.
We're
products.
not
Or whatever,
prohibiting it
yeah.
after
Yeah.
the first.
But
Yeah.
see,
Yeah,
all right,
after the
so,
first
I mean,
25.
walkway, I would, I don't think we need a walkway out there, because,
No one's walking on Route 1.
no.
You can just keep it.
There'd be a sidewalk there.
No, it should
there'd
be.
a sidewalk there, or nothing, you don't want the people, if they're gonna be parking that close, they're gonna go this way
This
to the
way.
building.
Yeah.
Or to view the products or whatever they have, so I would get the walkway out of there, that would just take up some room, you know?
I mean, it's just example, it does not,
I
doesn't
don't
need
think
to add
anybody's
more.
gonna do it anyways, but, you know.
Yeah, well, again, we could just leave it,
Well-
copy that wording, and,
Depending on what type of businesses,
Yeah.
businesses sometimes put walkways for their employees to walk at lunchtime or something to get exercise or something. That's why it might have been in there for other uses, not so much highway business.
Right.
but-
Or if it's like a hotel and it's connecting to the
Yeah,
So,
Yeah.
sidewalk.
so you can walk over to the business next door to buy your
Oh, yeah.
hot dogs and hamburgers.
so we have to put something in there, as long as it does not affect the sightlines, you know, whatever goes in there.
Well, that's still
I don't-
there.
I mean, that would be,
that's
that would be
the other
something else,
sections. Yeah.
another
I think
section.
Still
Section, so it
applicable,
should cover
no
it.
matter what.
until with the fences section, the sign section you read, I think it's still, we got
Yeah.
backup in other sections.
Yeah, I think.
to
And
cover
usually
that.
even landscaping, I don't know if 13 spells it out exactly, but that's usually goes within site plan review.
Yeah.
You can't put, you're not gonna put a tree right at
No,
the,
I
Yeah.
mean, they can put a bush there, but some of
And
these bushes
parking
are gonna
puts-
grow
Yeah.
like this before you know it. and-
Depending on the size of the parking, is puts landscaping requirements into it also.
Yeah.
So you can't build a
A
25-foot
wall of
wide
feeds of
parking
wood.
lot. You gotta have, put some landscaping in
Yeah,
the interior too.
10% has to hit.
Right, you get the drift, come up with the language now.
I got you. You'll move on, yeah.
We caused the headaches, you fix them.
Oh, no, it's, all
I
right,
think that's why we're here. we're
That's
just
why
trying
you're
to
here.
find the things that
Okay,
need
on
to
to
be
page
fixed.
3.
on to page 3, lot frontage.
We better slow down, we might get hurt here.
If we just focus on one section though, this is not insurmountable.
Yep.
Yeah. So this goes back to, I guess, our first conversation with the frontage.
street's
where
right
are
back here.
So this is,
Okay, the frontage, yeah.
so another thing, she kept 6C2, what we're calling the whole reserved for future use. Do we want to just get rid of that and bump it up?
Where are we looking at now? Oh, you,
Or does that make sense?
6-3, okay.
So we have the reserve for future use, but when is that ever gonna be utilized, or is that?
Okay, where are you?
What was,
He's
oh,
on page
That's page
47.
three. yeah.
that was the
So on the
additional
original,
setbacks for
on the
heights of the
original
building.
zoning, they have reserved for further use.
If the building's a
Oh,
certain
okay.
height,
Yeah.
you couldn't put them too close
You
to
know what,
the
they probably
side.
took
Yeah.
something out.
Yeah, like a
they'd give
step
them
back.
extra
Yeah,
setback.
so they didn't have to
But
change
they
all the
got rid
numbers,
of it.
right?
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I don't know why the people stupid argued against it.
The what?
They got
Blame
some
him.
step backs.
If the buildings were at a certain height, you had to have more side setback. So depending on which zones you're in, instead of having like a 15-foot setback, you need a 20-foot
We
setback.
usually have what's called like a step back.
Back from
So
the
like,
front,
Yeah.
usually that's in a
shadow.
downtown, yeah, you
Yeah.
have to not have a
And
canyon effect.
people
Yeah.
argued against it and they got rid of it. I had a whole presentation on it.
Yeah, because they had a
Keep it.
moratorium we got here too.
Yeah.
And they
in
got rid of
6,
it on me.
On the multifamilies.
Because right now,
Huh.
you can get two 30-foot houses in GR that are, what's the setback, 5 or 10?
10 feet in total from
Yeah,
each
so
other.
20 feet away, and you got two 30-foot tall buildings next to each other.
Mm.
Before, they would have had to have been like,
Stepping
I
back.
got
Reach out and touch someone.
Yeah.
You know, so it's,
Yeah, I mean, that's,
it's called looking out into your neighbor's windows, whatever, yeah,
yeah.
that range. Looking into each other's
So I
bedroom
guess from just
windows.
But I mean,
Cool.
our setbacks and, are so much greater than other parts of the country. I mean, I mean.
Oh, yeah, if
Sure.
you go to
my
like
daughter
major
in
cities,
Texas-
yeah,
my
yeah,
daughter
you're
in
right.
Texas, I mean, I think they're a lot. I don't know if it's much more than 10,000 square feet, and they have a 3,200 square foot home, two-story, and then
A lot is
the other one's right next to them, but you know, they don't have like windows on that side, you know, the garage is on one side,
Yeah.
so they don't see anybody on that side, and then,
They
you
have
know,
all the
it's just,
landscaping.
I think what it really gets confined is if you have something behind you. So if it's a street behind you, you know, it's like the open space zoning.
Yeah.
But she's fortunate enough that she's on a hill and there's a detention basin in the park, so she looks out over the roofs of all of the houses down below. I mean, her ground floor, her land is, at least 15, 20 feet above the peak of the roof on the houses down the hill, so she gets to see a nice view.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, my other daughter in Miami, they're right on top, they don't,
Yeah.
you don't get to see.
Major cities are
anything.
definitely like
So,
that
Yeah.
elsewhere.
You don't see anything but the skyscrapers on every side,
Yeah.
any side. of
Well,
it.
I mean, she's in a neighborhood now that's all houses and stuff, so.
Yeah.
Still
Like
mentioning
LA
that.
and like a lot of
and then the
California
waterway
cities are like
behind
that
it,
too.
so.
Watch out for the
You
pythons.
still see the house right across,
Yeah.
right
So,
across the water from us.
I guess
But
to
the
that point
alligators.
of
Oh,
that section,
Do we just take it out?
do you take it out? Cause it seems kinda silly to leave a
it
refuse,
does,
to leave a reserve for future use in there.
because it's
Just bump
special
it all up.
conditions, you don't know what you're gonna put in there anyways.
Yeah, and I feel like it's always, this is the problem with, when you take stuff out,
Everything
it's
gets
easy to
adjusted.
just leave it as is, cause realistically, you wanna bump everything up rather than
Everything
having
gets
this.
renumbered, yeah.
Yeah, which, I mean, I get why that was done, but I think from the standpoint of just, if anything comes back, add it to the end as opposed to,
Yeah, so if you, well, if we're renumbering everything, you can get it out of there, right?
yeah, I mean, we're all gonna renumber everything anyway, but for this point, you would still have to renumber 6C.
Yeah.
3 would become 6C2, and everything gets bumped up. And then you have to make sure that you reference, wherever it's referenced elsewhere, like the definitions references
And you got
6C.
4 goes up, 5 goes up,
Yep.
6 goes up, 7 goes up, there's a lot of them that actually got moved.
But actually, didn't we talk about moving some of these under front? Let's,
There's
where
a
is it?
lot- Okay, yeah.
Front
there's a
yard
lot
setback
of
exceptions, would we rather have that determination of front
We moved
lot
buffer zone
frontage
into.
and lot
this.
area?
Right.
So,
So looking at 3A, I know
Yeah.
she's knocked out the last line of 3A.
mhm.
I would just keep that, I would keep that in there for the second last line, so that's just describing how you do it on a corner lot or something that's got a radius on it. And then it just says, in determining the lot area, no portion thereof within the exterior line of any
You
street
can
shall be
use that for
included.
frontage calculations, but you can't use it. for-
Exactly.
She also
only-
asked, what do we mean by exterior line? That seemed to be.
Well, on a side
The
street, for
rear of the
instance,
lot?
the corner lot isn't a square.
Yeah.
You got the
A
round
curve.
here.
Mhm.
So you count your frontage past the round, but you don't count that area there as
As-
part of your square footage.
Okay,
So you can use all the way out to here for frontage. So you might only go out here to like 70 feet, but out to here might be 100 feet.
okay,
So that gives you the frontage you need, but you can't count this like 30 or 40 feet, whatever, as part of your square footage you need.
Of your lot.
got it.
It's kind of like a private road. People always say, I own to the center of the private road.
Yeah.
You don't.
It's still a private
No.
road.
But they still count it, some people still try and count it as their lot, and it's not part of their lot. So that's kind of what that's why I kind of wanted to,
Did I recall that the,
Exterior street
your dimension is at the setback, like your frontage would be at the setback?
You have to have it
Or-
either at the street or at your front setback. You
So-
have to have the frontage.
you have,
Right.
there's an exception that, say if you have a clean lot and you need 100 feet frontage, you can
Yeah.
have it here. But if you have a lot that goes back, and at 30 feet back, say in GR,
Yeah,
this has to be 80%
80%.
of your lot, so
okay.
you need 80 feet here. If vice versa, people have done it where if they've only 80 feet here, but the lot goes back this way,
Right.
if you have 100 feet here, it counts as a buildable lot as well.
Right, that's what I was thinking.
You have
So
to
the
have it either
setback is
there
like-
or
So you
there.
can have it either, okay.
So
yeah.
we have a few lots where
Either
people
one or the
had
other.
the full frontage,
Yeah.
but it did have the width, so they put an angle
So
on
when you
each
have
lot.
narrow lots, you have one that has 100 here and 125 in the back, the other one has 125 in the front and 100 in the back.
You can
So you have like 25 feet less of frontage you would normally need because you've
Because
zigzagged
it's
the
cut off or
front.
something,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
so, yeah.
you could have two
Yeah,
lots.
That's what I remember,
You
yeah,
could have two lots like that, so this one's only at 80 feet.
yeah.
So I'll go this way, or sorry, this one has 80 feet, this one is 100. I can
Yeah.
draw the line that way, so I get my frontage here, this
Right.
guy gets his frontage
Yeah.
back here. And it's primarily based on that you can fit, so we don't allow pork chop lots in this town really, so, because you have to do an 80% circle tangential to the front line to show that you can get that 80%, so we have some lots that the pork chop lot, you're not, unless it's existing, you can't build on a pork chop lot in this town.
There are some that existed before that.
Yeah, we have a good few around, but
Over
All
in
of Dutton Park,
Hmm?
all of Dutton Park. All their frontage is out on Elm
East
Street,
Elm Street, yeah. That's a
There's
really-
some up on,
the Medfield line in 27.
There's some come out. and
backing
s-
up on 95, I can't think of what street it is now, up off of 27.
Johnson?
So-
Johnson Drive?
Um,
That
Moose
goes
Hill.
behind Walmart?
Off Moose Hill,
That
whatever,
goes behind Walmart.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
Johnson,
Johnson.
Johnson Drive?
Yeah.
There's a couple of lots way in the back, the front yard to like 46 feet wide.
Yeah.
You couldn't build a house there, but it goes back 100 feet to an open lot that you can build a house on.
Yeah, they use that as.
You
a
can't
little-
do that anymore, yeah,
No, unless you had a paper street in there.
yes.
Then that's fun.
Mhm.
That's a whole other.
Well, no,
Jim, you wanna keep
oh, you
that
have a-
last
you have-
line?
You have
That's what
a
you're
private,
saying?
Just
So-
because,
you have a private road with a cul-de-sac at the
it just explains to people, because we get it a lot when people are doing it, and as the John said, that curve, people are saying, well, my property go, because the architects will, or the site guys will draw that, and especially then on private roads, it's that thing that everybody's always been told, oh, I own to the center of my road. You don't. Not in a private, unless you abandon, everybody abandons it, but everybody goes, oh, my frontage is in the middle of the road, I own half the road, and you're like, no, you
You
don't.
have-
No.
It's your property line,
fee interest in
Yeah.
it, but it's
Yeah.
not ownership.
not until
So-
it gets abandoned, then you envelop
But I
it.
go back to like exterior line, is that term defined? Or exterior, along the exterior street line? Or should it be like line of pavement?
Well, they said they crossed it out exterior here.
I think she crossed out because she didn't know what was the intent of what is meant by the exterior street line? Should there be an interior, what's an interior street?
Well, it could
Yeah.
be like,
I'm going to guess,
Like, I get what you're saying,
you
say
got a
it's,
big
it's
lot
the edge
and you
of
have
pavement. right?
a private road going through the lot.
Yeah.
So it's the exterior street line that provides the frontage, not the
Yeah.
interior one typically. Although the interior one could be, But it's still, I would have to say, it's still considered exterior to the lot.
Oh, see, I guess I'm thinking of it like, all right, you got a street,
Yeah.
you know, you got the right of way, you know, so to speak. The line of pavement would be the exterior
The
street
exterior-
line.
oh.
But if that's not
I don't think that's the
the intent,
definition of it, no.
we
They
have-
typically say
We
paved.
don't have a
Okay, so
definition.
that's exactly what it's saying. It's saying that you can use it as the frontage, but you can't use it as your square footage.
Right.
Yeah.
when you
Yes.
leave it there,
You're on the
right? So that,
corner.
yeah,
You
so
do an
that,
imaginary line out,
Yeah.
imaginary line out, that's your frontage, but you can't ever develop
Because
it.
in reality,
my lot, I could actually, I got.
in
two
most
rows,
cases, it
pretty
doesn't
well
matter
toward
because
square, so I
at
could-
your
I could have had.
front setback, you have that full hundred anyways,
Yeah,
because of the way the.
I'd give more money if it's Dover, with the name Dover Road, right?
The fire department make you change your front door to that.
Yeah.
so that doesn't really answer, I
I'm
guess,
trying
the
to-
question, in terms of, is that the right term, or do we need to better define that term?
Exterior line.
Which one?
Street-
I'm sorry?
Exterior street line.
Of any street shall be located.
63.
I don't think you need exterior, do you? I mean, it's a street line, right? I mean, we're,
Yeah,
Uh,
is that the
I
best?
mean, unless, the only other thing, you could put the lot line along the street,
Lot
something
line.
like that. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, the lot. See what Curly has come up. All right.
It looks like, it looks.
See,
it
that
up.
kind of
It-
really
it
fits
looks like
more
that's
than
referring
in the
to,
last
like,
sentence there.
Exterior would be,
Frontage
you
on a
can't
corner
include
lot shall
whatever
be measured
amount
along
of
the exterior street line from one
frontage.
side of the lot
Interior
to the
line.
point of
Yeah.
So it is
intersection
when
of
you do a
tangents
corner,
on the radius.
you'd normally
Yeah.
say
That's
frontage,
actually
you
saying the
curve
same
around the
thing.
line, you'd
Yeah.
go straight here.
Street
Uh,
line,
Go straight
if it's
in
left
that
a street line
intersecting
or
line
exterior?
Yeah.
Is your
It
frontage.
says,
Yeah.
well, it
But
was
technically, this
exterior.
line down here, you can't use as your,
That's
as
not
your
the
square
right
foot.
word
You're using it to
usually
get
anyway, because that's
your
just saying the
frontage.
same thing.
Yeah.
right, because state laws usually said when you do, like you'll have frontage that might have a slight bend in it,
Yeah.
Between
and you'll always see a
sides.
mark like that on a plot plan, because once, if it doesn't be a straight line, it tweaks, so you always have a mark like that in the radius here and here.
I see.
So technically, that's a break in a line. So, but we would count that as one frontage, because we have a thing in there that if you're 135 degrees, it's considered one line.
I see.
That's why I think they're saying if you extend on the corner, it stops here and then it curves around the corner.
Yeah, that's
They're
where
saying
it,
extend the lines.
Yeah.
Allowed to use that, that gives you actually that straight line, or that curved line, sorry, to be your frontage. But you can't use this. Some people say, well, that's extra footage, gives me more feet. You
Mhm.
can't.
I see.
So that's what I think it is, but.
So are you guys looking into that?
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this picture says interior side lot line and then street facing side lot line.
Yeah, what would be an interior line?
So interior lines for the,
interior line would be something probably bordering two lots, not a street.
it also goes on, again, to that thing of where you curve.
Yeah,
So again, when you do site or plot plan or doing frontage, once you hit a break or it changes degree, that's seen as a break. So this line here will be seen as an interior line, because it defines a break.
okay, yeah.
It's
yeah,
not
yeah,
your
yeah,
setback
yeah,
or
yeah,
anything,
okay, yeah,
and
yeah,
then
yeah,
this
yeah.
will be a defined, but that's where it says, so that's why I'm thinking, is that's why it's saying exterior, because it's not going for interior, it's going for the exterior, so when you extend it on and extend it on,
Yeah,
this is your frontage here,
yeah.
but it's kind of imaginary line. That's the exterior line, this is
Right,
an
that makes
interior
sense.
line.
Yeah, that's,
You
what
see where
could be an
the
explanation.
setback on the
Yeah.
curve?
So, say if you were doing a curve, say if you've got a street and you curve here and say the street
Yeah.
goes straight on, you've another street here.
Okay.
Your frontage line, if you look in a site plan, will come across, you'll see that kind of X shape here, and X
Yeah.
shape here, because you're changing direction or angle.
Yep.
So what we have is you continue your line straight, obviously your line straight, and that's your frontage. It's giving you this curve, but straighten it out.
Yeah, and
to
I
allow
got
it.
that, and you can't count that towards your lot area.
Yeah,
I get-
this area
yeah.
here. This line here, because it's a straight break, and this line here, because it's a straight break, is seen as your interior line. So this would be seen as your exterior line.
That makes sense.
Welcome to site
I
plan.
actually, my property bounds are here and here.
Yeah, probably where it
My
starts
bound,
curving.
the bound
So this is
markers are
always
at-
known as an interior. So
At the
Yeah.
break.
anywhere, like say if you,
You're
if you had a
right.
plot plan, even a silly plot plan that went like this, and this was, the road went down here, that's a break in the line. that line, imaginary line there would be seen as an interior line. It's just for, doing plot
Yeah,
plan,
okay,
for doing
alright.
site, for them measuring, they'll go, oh, from the house, just for them to find marking places, this angle here is an interior lot line 70 feet off the house or 25 feet off a pole or something.
Yeah.
It's a marking point.
I guess it goes back to the point of, do we need to define that? Because we don't define it, it was just kind of,
We just, yeah, it's more from, I
Well,
think
do we
whoever wrote
call
that
it
probably done
change it?
surveying.
yeah.
And
The surveyor was, who did it.
Who did it
Yeah.
and called it an exterior.
Yeah. Surveyor probably came in and tried to explain it to the board, and they said, oh, we gotta put that in there. And then they put the exterior.
So I think that's what they're saying is determining lot line, no portion of within the exterior lot line shall be included. So that portion that John had, had colored in, that's inside the exterior lot lines. Because this is obviously your lot line here, but because it's an imaginary line, that's what that exterior lot line is saying. Anything in this area can't be counted. If that makes sense. It sounds great in my head.
Okay.
That's why I won't be worried about not
I
removing.
know, after you read it a couple times. it
Yeah.
kinda-
Okay, I
it
suppose
makes
one
sense.
reason it might be
Okay.
worded this way is just in case someone's trying to do something stupid, you have to measure your frontage along the road line.
Yeah.
You can't measure it along your sideline.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how long that is, it's not gonna generate frontage for
Yeah.
you.
Yep.
You need the frontage on a road.
Exterior. And I think it says the exterior street line or exterior line,
Exterior street
Exterior
line.
street
because
line.
it's a
yeah.
straight shot, not if it curves or you're trying to get out, the road bends around.
You would almost have to keep this language, because if you said, your lot area would be along the interior lines, now you'd be losing
Losing
space.
footage, exactly,
You'd be
yeah.
losing footage, so you could say, it's a you'd almost have to describe it as that, right? Because if you use the interior line as your, lot, area, the, square footage,
Then you'd lose it.
you'd lose that area.
Okay.
You know, so, where's your diagram there? So,
That's why that
So-
last sentence is there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On interior, you lose all
so
that
this
section.
land in this like pie-shaped thing right
Yeah,
here?
yeah, yeah.
You wouldn't be counting that if you use the interior lines, right?
No.
In here, this would eliminate that from
Because a lot of people
square
do.
footage.
Yeah.
So you couldn't say interior lines, I think, that's why you would have to stay with the language
So
that
private road.
we have there, even though it's
Your
confusing.
neighbors over here and the private road.
All right.
Maybe we can put a diagram
Every
in
road
there,
takes
so you
about
can see.
I think that's another point that she brought up,
You technically don't, you do and you don't.
yeah,
If
would
you
benefit from
abandon
an
the road,
illustration.
Instead of saying, well, you take your land, they literally go to the center road and that goes to your
Probably
lot, that goes
would,
to my lot,
I
we're
think,
abandoning the
almost.
road.
Yeah.
There's
It's
a lot
a lot
of
of
paper
headache.
streets
Yeah, it's a
around.
lot.
Or a road,
Yeah,
right?
but a lot of people go,
1,000
well,
words, right?
I
Yeah,
use the
oh,
center
yeah.
street, my setback.
So
from
we
there,
wanna
and
keep
like, no,
exterior?
it's not, your setback is
Yeah,
from
guys, the
right
corner
there,
lot
and not
has-
here.
I
Because some
think
people
you
would
have
that
to
extra few
almost
feet would help you.
Be used for
I see.
something else.
So that's where,
Even if the road gets abandoned, the setback
if
remains
the
what
road
it
gets
is.
abandoned and everybody agreed to abandon it,
Yeah.
then you go to the center of the road is where, so people
Yeah.
aren't fighting, well, I'm gonna take that side, you go at that side.
Makes sense.
You get, your lot then becomes, we have it up on, Main Street. A guy, Juicy, done it years ago. They had a private road, paper road in there, and they abandoned it, and each lot enveloped the road.
Interesting.
So we're keeping exterior, that language of exterior street line, so that has to, it's wherever it's Xed out.
Diagram in the book, little, illustration.
I think we.
We're gonna
In the
put you- do we
definition
have it?
I
section.
think we do have in definitions, because we do, there is a weird one that if you're over, if your curve or the road is over 135 degrees, then your whole line is seen as your frontage. There's no break on it at all.
Yeah, like Baker Street is, got that, just about that angle there.
Oh, okay.
Baker
So-
Street goes out at like 135 angle, Washington, the curve up.
Gotcha,
Baker,
yeah.
it's a 45-degree angle on the other side.
All right,
I think
So
it
other than
just misses that requirement.
so bringing back that last sentence, keeping exterior,
Mhm.
do we have any issues with the other deletion she has in 6.3A? 6.3A, that removal of, and the longer of said distances shall be considered as the frontage of such lot, however, the shorter of such frontage, shorter of such measurements shall not be less than 80% of the required frontage.
Well, something like that
What
is
she said
needed.
about,
Some of that is
having an
covered
inspection, yeah,
with the next,
down the bottom, she said.
where's the circle requirement? That was,
So the 80%, yeah, the 80% circle requirement was always in.
circle requirement is back in the beginning somewhere.
Percent is
Hmm.
in.
80%.
Are you gonna be able to find all these dates that she wants?
Probably, maybe. If not, we're gonna have to figure out different language.
Make
or-
one up.
Or just
Make it up.
leave it as is. Oh, boy.
Yeah, no, six B.
So 6.3A.
6B2.
6.3A.
At the 80% for getting the frontage.
So she's trying to simplify the language, which is
Yeah, I
perfectly
think
honest,
so,
it needs
but-
to be, because it's,
I'm not sure if she
Yeah.
has simplified it really. She's eliminated an important piece, I think.
Yeah.
oh,
It can be reduced, because that fits in with six B two, where the circle requirement was added.
What it was originally, it was like three like there are three measurements in the original,
which one's that?
and she's
This one
changing it to
here.
just be one measurement.
Oh, sorry, thank you. That's,
Because that says you have to be able to create a circle of 80% of the frontage size on the lot that touches the street.
Street line,
So you can't have
Must maintain
the spaghetti
between the
strip
side,
lots,
side
basically.
yard,
yep,
along this line.
You have to at least show that you have a big enough piece.
This
that you
wasn't there
can build
before, so
something.
originally what it was saying is you have to have the measurement on the exterior between the sidelines, and the longer of those distances.
That's why the
has to
80%
be
is in
in the area, where's
the
the circle?
At least 80.
calculation of the frontage.
She took the
I gotcha.
80% out, which-
I
All right.
don't think you
Struck
could
a
do it
Right.
without having the 80%, because I don't think this would work.
It would work with
otherwise.
that, okay.
She's removing.
Jim, how come she wants to get rid of that 80% thing now?
That's what I'm trying
Huh?
to
I
read.
think John said
Did she
it,
have it
Well, no,
someplace
actually,
else?
can you do
Huh?
that?
Why did she cross out that 80% thing?
Ah.
Because Jim just explained it, and
The way that it read before, is
And
like
she's getting
there are
rid of it.
two measurements, and she said one has to be at least 80% of the other. And
Right.
now
Right.
she's saying this is one measurement that fulfills both of the two different categories. And I don't know how to make sense of
Yeah,
what exactly
I
that
think
means.
her
Right.
change is incorrect. You need to show both of them, because I think,
She's conflating two different lines, right?
So, yeah, she's saying, so she's wording, changing that you have to either have it, she's
you have to
saying
have
that,
it either here or.
but
the
she never mentions
setback
the
here.
80% though.
Right.
Right,
That's the tweak is she
that
took,
is, she took out that percentage, and I don't think the circle requirement back here in
would make
six
sense
B
without
two
it.
is sufficient.
enough, I think we need to leave that 80% in.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, like, leave that,
say
don't
don't
touch
do it.
that
Yeah,
paragraph.
Yeah.
All right,
Because that 80% is usually, that's the way it works, is if you have two lots.
so we're gonna leave as
Say
is.
you needed two, you say you need 100 feet frontage,
Mm-hmm.
and this is 180 feet long. I go to split it, I know one lot will have 100 feet, and this lot only is 80. But if I go back at an angle,
Yeah.
and I make this 100 here, and I make this 80 here, now I frontage out front here, but I have frontage 100% of it at 30 feet back.
Yeah.
They're buildable lots,
Yep.
but that's 80% of it.
Yeah.
If we take out the 80%, I don't think,
And what she's written here ignores the fact that this 80 and this 100 can be different.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I think we need that 80% in there. I
Okay.
get our 80% because it does say you have to do an 80% circle tangential to the front line.
Mm-hmm.
So it does have that measurement built into it, but I think that's a better, the way it's written there, I think is easier to understand.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's mostly flowing from her confusion about what the external line is.
Yeah.
I think she doesn't know what this is saying.
it's easier to understand and easier for you to explain, I think.
Yeah, yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Yeah.
When somebody comes in.
Exactly.
Exactly, it's a lot handier for me to
So I
understand.
mean, I put a note too, I mean, I look for an illustration, but realistically, I mean, we don't have one within
don't
the
have a good one,
definition.
really.
Yeah,
She even suggested it.
Yeah.
You know, so.
and really that kind of clears it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we have the corner lot and we have the 135, so we have a corner lot one, we have 135, but the corner one is a perfect
Mhm.
square and it doesn't go on because again, she's put square here, but the front lines is actually,
But that's.
if that's the
yeah.
sidewalk.
It doesn't tell me anything in terms of the exterior street line,
Because
though.
if you look at the 4A, that's a perfect corner, and that looks like that's the sidewalk. So yeah, it would be a perfect square lot, but if our property line is the edge of the street, so if you look at, say, the likes of North Street, you go down North Street, you've only a footpath on one side, the other side doesn't have a footpath. Anybody has their lawn right up to the road, is their street, so is their property line out at the road, or is the property line just, they never put a sidewalk there, so the owners just enveloped
Right,
it
where
in?
is your property line really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so like, that's a perfect scenario there, like, yeah, you have a perfectly square lot with
Because
a
so many of the
footpath.
streets don't cover the full 46 feet.
Yeah.
And they're not, newer ones which have a more of a fixed definition.
Well, that doesn't really,
Wind, so they get narrower, they get wider, and
Yeah,
You know something though, Jim, I'm thinking again, I think I just have the one bound right there.
plausible.
Because it's, this is the street right away on both sides.
well, we've plans that people have done their yard
it
in,
wouldn't
taken
necessarily
over
be a
land.
bound at both
Yeah.
points, it's just on the plan.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure I have it at the corner there. I mean, that's the corner of my lot, and then.
you could
so-
have,
so-
yeah,
So this isn't even my land out here, because, comes quite a bit.
probably, being honest,
Yeah.
like I know Common Street, we get a lot of complaints when the guys drive the plows in the winter time, they take mailboxes out of it, but they were actually on town property, because Common Street, we owned another, I think, 5 or 10 feet in on the properties.
Oh, really?
'Cause, yes, it was like, that was a controversial thing when Dupee was going in. They were saying the street's not wide enough, but people found out he had actually a full 40 foot wide or something. They just built their lots, their land over. Summer Street's the same.
Oh.
If you go down Summer Street past the post office, there's a nice little blue house there on the left. Their lawn is all the way onto the road. About 10 feet back in, there's a nice little old stone wall. That's actually their, in behind that wall is their property line.
Wow.
Because County Road actually goes, wanders, and we built Summer Street pretty straight, but actually Summer Street's built on someone's property. The County Road
Yeah, I know there
meanders.
was, several years back, whatever, they ended up getting some land from a landowner, because the street actually went through someone's land.
Yeah,
And they had to recorrect,
we have that in a few places down where if you go the old county roads and pull them up, it's someone's yard, and the streets on the road, the physical road is in on someone's property. Just, they never quite matched up, and they said, go ahead.
Well, mine, you're familiar with my house, my grass line is actually the property line.
Yeah.
So they own everything out front, which I lucked out because, they talked Eversource into taking down the dead ash trees out front, and I didn't have to pay for it.
There's always a bonus side to it.
Yeah.
all right. So 6.3B, going over her edits. Contiguous buildable area of a lot shall be interpreted as the horizontal area of any lot created after applicable, insert the applicable date. I'm not sure, I guess we'll have to find that. The adoption of section 6C, so that's just gonna try to find, when that was created, and if not, we'll just have to remove it and go with it. But this, she removes that, sentence, exclusive of any area in a street or recorded way open or way proposed to be open to public use for any lot created after the adoption of section 6C. I don't know if that, I guess Jim's is really more of a, have any issues with the removal of that sentence?
So in your common street example, does that mean that, like, whatever amount of that space that is actually technically part of the street is not currently considered part of the horizontal area that becomes buildable?
Yeah, it would
And,
be
like-
considered, never would be.
And so if she deletes this, then could they then include that in their buildable?
They still couldn't, because, so, that's where it always gets tricky. If you live beside me and you were, say, I put a fence up and you were on, I put the fence too far on my property, you maintain my property, it takes a lot of legality to get it, but you can go for eminent domain.
Oh, okay,
And you say, yeah, I've been maintaining your property for 20 years, you didn't even know you had it, I'm taking it.
I see.
You go, you can. Adverse possession adverse possession, but through the town eminent domain, they can take whatever they want. You can never take, you can maintain town property, but you can never take it.
Yeah,
Private property, I can take.
I see.
So that's why people always cut you have your land, footpath, and that little grass verge on every
Yeah.
owner maintains it,
Yep,
but it's not their property, it's still town property.
yep.
But
That makes sense.
taking that line out would be,
Salting it and killing all the grass.
I mean, does the size of your buildable area have any implications other than just literally where you can build?
so the size of the building area on your lot would only, what you can build, and if you're saying an area 1, 2, 3, or 4 recharge, there's like a, you can still go up to 40% lot coverage, but
Okay.
there's a stopgap at 15% for the zoning board to look at and say, hey, yeah, it's okay, it's fine, you can keep going. But that's where sometimes your lot area would come into play, because you'd be looking on how big is your lot, what's 15%? I'll build up to 15%, but not anymore, because I don't want to get pulled in front of the zoning board.
I see.
So that's where the lot area would come into play.
Oh, and my question doesn't make sense because even still, that land is technically not part of their lot.
Yeah, if they got
Yeah,
a site
I see.
plan.
Yeah, I see.
Contiguous buildable lot area. My answer would be, I'll come back to you on that one. It's an odd one,
Okay.
being honest.
Yeah. Difficult.
Because, yeah, it's
for
one,
sure.
I'll check up that section 131 as well.
Hmm.
Because we have that with, like, subdivisions. We do a 2-lot subdivision, usually you get waivers to get rid of the bulb. So you just do a driveway into your house. But if you ever were to add on to your house, that bulb is still technically there, because that's your frontage.
The cul-de-sac,
Yeah, so it's still there, 'cause we had that with the lady on, remember the lady on Arbor Court?
Yeah.
She was like, my road's all the way over there, and we're like, it's not, it's actually right there, because the bulb doesn't exist, but on
yeah. They just
paper.
didn't pave it.
Paper
that's
They
all.
never
was-
paved it,
they
yeah,
never paved.
so, because they got a waiver to do it that way.
But it's still a road.
Technically
Yeah.
still there.
That was what's giving you all the frontage you had.
Yeah.
Yep.
Without that, you didn't have frontage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me look into that, Patrick.
All right. So the other question she had, this is really just more of a minor one. So last sentence, minimum lot area required for zoning compliance shall be contiguous land other than the area, no, sorry, other than that located within an area identified as a resource area. But her recommendation was, the minimum lot area required for zoning compliance shall be contiguous, land, change to any portion of lot, excluding any portion of lot located within a resource area. I think I'm butchering that, but I think it's
It
more
just might
about,
be a little easier to understand. The
yeah,
way she has it.
yeah.
Yeah, I think
Says the
we're all
same
fine
thing,
with
I
that,
think
yeah.
their wording is.
Less words and more understandable.
Okay, so I'm fine with, we're fine with
Instead of
that.
other than excluding is a better word to use. yeah.
Okay. So move on from there.
This is still continuing, okay.
So. Just want to go. So if we're looking at, we can go in order, or if this is, I guess, back to what we first talked about. So under 6C3, determination of lot area, of lot frontage and lot area. Is there an opportunity for consolidation, or does that make any sense with other provisions of 6C? So there's the whole front yard setback exception, as well as the corner clearance. You know what I mean? Should those be their own subsections, or does it make sense to consolidate anything so we don't have to be flipping back and forth between pages?
I'm not sure I understand which ones you're talking about.
So 6C3 is a determination of lot area, of lot
Right.
frontage and lot area. There are, there's the front yard setback exceptions under 6C7. And then there is the,
Oh, I see.
Corner
Adding more
clearance.
things.
Yeah. I do feel like if you put the corner clearance further up where we're talking about the exterior lines, like that paragraph would actually
Yeah,
help
that
someone
makes sense.
understand, yeah.
Yeah, if you take 12 and put it up near 6, because you have side yard exception for corner lots,
Yep.
and then a corner lot clearance.
it's almost make it like 12C3C.
And then go back to that one that, again, in definitions is 1, And then in this, it's different, as John had said before, on a corner lot, one's your frontage, one's your, ends up being your side, and we go back to front on both sides.
You know,
I like that.
the more I think about it, the more I like it, because
Yeah.
it's gonna be more conforming to both
Streets.
sides.
Yeah.
You know, it's not gonna stick out on one side.
And then also, just for visual, if you drive down here, if my house is on this lot, but I have a big shed over here, it's impairing my view there, but if it's set back, I got nice clearance on it.
I always thought I liked it the other way, but I'm leaning more to this now. I think because I never thought of it conforming with the non-frontage side, you
Yeah.
know, so it,
So I think that one, it's the 7B we play around with, if I'm correct. It's on a corner lot, only one street shall be used for the purpose of measuring minimum lot frontage and setback requirements.
Where are you reading that? Sorry.
7B,
7B.
page
Oh.
38,
So, all right, that comes back to,
the front,
Boy.
the corner lot. So that's where front yard exception comes in. Do we take that B section out and put that in with 12 and 6? So I'm confused with these everybody. No, so I'm trying to say that, so number 12 is
Yeah.
corner clearance.
corner clearance.
Number 6 is side yard exception for corner lots.
Yep.
And number 7B is a corner lot.
Yeah.
Do we put those three kind of in row with each other together?
like, yeah, like.
Rather than going corner here, then I'm jumping over here, then I'm jumping over here.
Like ABC on the
Yeah.
corner.
Yeah.
Combining the corners together.
Yeah.
So,
So,
corner lots.
But on that one for especially 7B, on a corner lot, only one street shall be used for the purpose of measuring lot frontage. That's fine. But, and street setback measurements, do we take out the setback measurements? Because that would revert it back to the definitions which says your frontage is off of both streets.
So, a lot of-
Um,
So, my only question is, what about the houses that were built under the current language? Now we're making them non-conforming. So would that create any issues with them down the line if they wanted to do anything?
No, they'd actually be very more protected. They actually get more protection on
You
it.
have to get rid of.
So every time we,
one.
even the simplest thing, by wording, even the small things we change in zoning, so like, anybody say, we brought in ADU requirements. By doing so, we made all houses with in-laws pre-existing non-conforming. So they're all wrong right now, but they're
Oh,
allowed to
really?
keep them, yeah.
Oh, wow.
So by changing
But
zoning,
the thing is, what could you do with them? I mean, you
So-
can't make it more non-conforming, right?
technically you can. You can ask, you can go to the zoning board for, under section 9, to expand the non-conformity or, but you'd have to show it's not more detrimental and it's not to the neighborhood than that.
So say it was just a house there on the corner lot and they didn't have the setbacks.
Yeah,
I mean, they conform to this.
yeah,
Are they really limited in what they could do otherwise?
to a degree. Because now they'd have, anything they want to change to that portion, to make it bigger or go more, they'd have to go to the zoning board for a special permit to be allowed to do it. Because everything we change here makes things non-conforming automatically.
So I'm trying to think that if they didn't have the setbacks, so what if they wanted to add on to the back of the house?
They're still good, on that side they're good, if you went on the back, as long as they're not encroaching more or creating something new, then they're fine.
Yeah, but aren't they extending the nonconformity when they make it longer?
So that's where section 6 is, if you expand the non-conformity, you have to go to the zoning board or special permit.
So they would have to do it, but would they give it, I mean?
When it comes to the zoning board, today is Tuesday, that's all I can guarantee you. I can't guarantee anything else with them. It could,
I mean, the only thing, I like the 2 front setbacks,
Yeah.
but I don't wanna,
so take,
I don't wanna put a burden on the existing ones that did everything right before, you know, so.
well, no, they actually, so against that point I made, they're wrong, but they're actually very well protected. They're actually more protected than being right, to a degree. So, so there was a case, I know I'm gonna say the street wrong, because I always do, Patrick laughs at me. It's off of Common Street, it's I call it
Oh, the
Oxycontin.
circle, Occidental, is it?
Oh.
Oh, Occidental down by the high
Occidental, like you
school.
call it
Yeah.
Oxycodone.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
down by the high school.
Probably 2 years ago, a couple went to expand their house. 60% of their house was in the rear yard. And they wanted to go more into the rear. And they said, "Hey, we're going up against the high school. It affects nobody." They got denied because they said, "Oh, if you're doing an addition, keep it just in line with the back of the house. You can't go past it," because they wanted to go way past it.
Right.
They decided, okay, and they changed their plans and kept it straight. They technically could have gone to the state and they would have won.
They could have appealed it.
100%, and they would have won 100% and go, because unless they show something that's detrimental, because you're already wrong. So if you're already in trouble,
Yeah.
why not do it? You're already wrong, so
You're already in trouble, go
Yeah.
for the whole thing.
unless you create something new, so being wrong is not wrong, it just means you're not conforming. But we have it, like a lot of, like Emerald Way, you know Emerald Way in Kilronan? Off of Fisher Street, that nice development that's in
Oh,
there.
yeah.
They're all non-conforming homes.
Right.
Since 8 years ago, they've all completely non-conforming, except for probably 6 of them that are conforming, because they got approved under, before I even got here, under an open space law.
Yeah, no.
That's gone. So as soon as that went, all those houses became non-conforming. So none of those houses up there are conforming at all.
I think that's a mistake. I thought they came out pretty good. I don't know why we did away, why did we do away with that?
But that was before my time, I have no
I
idea.
know, but, you know, like I remember
Jack
when,
could tell you
Huh?
more, about that. Jack could tell you more about that, but,
well,
Open
I
space.
remember when we,
Yeah.
I remember when we did that, and some of the other board members were.
I think too many were not following all the rules of it.
But I think some
Well,
people, I can only look at it because I know when we tried the first rendition of the inclusionary zoning, which gave you relief on some of the properties, people got really angry on it, because if you go up to Emerald, the first few houses are really small lots, and then they fan out and get bigger back up to the right size, because they gave so much green space to the
Evenly
town.
dispersed.
So they were like allowed to reduce the lots, instead of spreading them across the board,
Right.
they made so, not to, I know.
So, but I remember when we were in there, and there was 1 or 2 residents that were dead against this. They wanted the conventional zoning. And then we were going up there, and then I could see that some of the abutters up there were, you know, kind of on the fence. And somebody said something, and it came to me. I said, would you rather see a conventional project with the houses right up, backing up to your house with, you know, the minimum setbacks, or would you rather have it with a 100-foot buffer all the way around, so you're not even gonna see the houses in there? And most of them wanted that more space between it, and that's, I think, what convinced a couple of us in the planning board to go with it. And, I mean, there was a few things that was awful. They had like a path coming out between 2 houses, and we got rid of that, you know?
Yeah.
And they had a little cul-de-sac that was
So
going
that's
off
open
the end.
space. See, all these lots are
But
tiny.
I'm telling you,
and then they
those
get huge,
houses,
big.
they were
So
standing
they
in
give
line to
all
buy
this as
those.
green
Everybody
area.
wanted
So
those
are
small
low that
lots.
If you
and-
give so much
and
green
it-
area.
And I think it's a nice
reduce
little
what you
area
would-
with
so
the
every
open
house
space
should
up
require
there.
this.
Open,
So it meant you got probably
circle in
5,
the
6
middle
more
and.
houses
It's-
in there
it's
that
definitely-
you should be allowed to do.
I see.
So that
It's
was.
not
so
unconventional.
technically, so that's
parts
the way
of
it
the
is. See
state.
the way these are tiny here, and then
Yeah.
they fan out to bigger. So these are actually the legalized lots that meet the zoning.
Yeah,
The open space allowed you to reduce all these here, so it
Right.
looks smaller. So technically, all these houses here that are not at 40,000 square feet, and all these here are all non-conforming right now.
so it was almost right at the culvert, right? Almost after the
Yep.
culvert right there, everything went in. But if you, can we scroll down?
Nope.
wait a
Oh, you're
minute.
good. No, it's not touchscreen. Mine's not
Bring
very
it
fancy.
down, bring it down a little bit. But see the buffer you have between these houses and,
Yeah, so that was all the green space they
Yep,
gave as
yep.
part of it. It helped the developer too, because you could give away a lot of wetlands that you couldn't build on anyway, and use it to your advantage. Because he gave all Covert Road or Gould, he gave, where are we going to, my bad. He gave all this land here, that strip there, this land, this spot. He gave all that as, and in here as green area for the reduced lot sizes.
I
But to
see.
Patrick's point, I think went better if the open space gave it to him as the same size across relief on all the lots, rather than 4 or 5 small lots, then you got
yeah,
bigger
yeah,
again.
yeah, it was the whole thing, yeah.
So that's what, so again, just to your point, by changing that zoning or removing that,
That would've
all
been the
these are
intention of,
non-conforming.
like, a true inclusionary zoning bylaw, right? If you did it for a subdivision or something like that, if
Yeah.
you reduce the lots, you can add more lots, which is a benefit of the developer, but
Yeah.
the town benefits by a percentage.
Well,
of the
actually, it didn't
affordable.
really add more lots, because they had to show us a conventional plan.
Yeah.
They had to show us a conventional plan with how many lots they got.
Yeah.
Because I remember, he was trying to use the land that he had already sold and built houses on, off of North Street. And he was trying to include that in his conventional, and we said, no, that's out of there.
Yeah.
You can only use the
This is
land that's
like-
there. So,
let's see,
we
this
came
guy
to the
wasn't-
compromise, because if you see it, go down to the end of the circle, right, right up in here.
Yeah.
He had a little cul-de-sac going up here with two houses, and then, see this path that comes in?
Yeah.
He really didn't even have an area there, so that goes to the open space, because it's supposed to be for recreational use and all of that.
Are there paths to it? Like, do people use it
I don't know if they ever did that
I
or
think
not,
that's
but
supposed
it's,
to be.
So just give an example of how the zoning worked back then.
yeah, I don't know if they did, but,
That's like basically my old neighborhood.
Yeah, so just
Yeah.
give an example, this, I believe, is R residential. Yeah, it's R, so normally in R, you need 200 feet frontage, and you need 40,000 square feet, which is almost an acre. They have .2, which is 8,000, 9,000 square feet is all they have, is their entire lot.
That's
Where
insane.
where the rest should be 40,000.
Yeah.
So you have these, so he can put 4 houses where he should legally only be allowed to put, nowadays, he would only be allowed to put
Yeah.
1. So anybody that wants to do additions or expansions on their property, they need to go to the zoning board for a special permit.
yeah, but see, John, what they had to do is, if this was his land right here, if that's all his land, they had to come in with a conventional plan, according to the zoning, and then we'd get a lot count, okay? So now we'd compromise, we come to the conclusion on the lot count, and that's all the lots he can do. So it doesn't matter that those lots are only .25.
Yeah.
He still can't put more houses in there.
I
He can
see.
only, he has to keep the open space,
I see.
all right?
That makes sense.
So that's all like conservation, he didn't give that back to the town, right? That's part of the HOA, isn't it?
It's the HOA and there's a conservation restrictions on it.
Right,
Yeah.
I
but,
didn't even know they had an HOA down there.
because like, Toll Brothers is the one that screwed us on that, when they did up there. Because they, you know, the buffer is supposed to be a usable walking recreational space. Well, the houses that back up to Washington Street, the house we were talking, it's a freaking cliff. I mean, what are you gonna do with, you can't, that's not for recreation, you know, so they messed us with that. you know.
Interesting.
But that's
So
why.
that's why I would, that's why, to go back to this point, that's why I would only take out that setback requirement, just because then it will revert back to the definitions where you need the setback frontage on front and side on a corner lot.
Yeah.
Which I think would be,
And you wanna combine all of that.
We have it in somewhere else that'll, I know
Yes, so it
taking it
should
out
be
here, but
in,
I know the definition had something like that.
yeah, the definition had it, so I don't know if we want to take out the setback requirement and saying, so on a corner lot, only one street shall be used for the purpose of measuring minimum lot frontage
Right.
and,
And then strike
Both.
and setback.
strike setback and put in something like, but both lot lines that abut the street have the required
Well, yeah.
frontage
Well,
setback
all lot lines
abutting the street
abutting a street.
has to have the front yard setback,
Setback, yeah.
something like
So
that.
that's basically, will cover any corner lot, basically, yeah.
I'm sorry, where is
So-
this? I'm just, we're all over the place with conversation, guys. I really don't know where we
Yeah,
are.
add-
seven-
add setback
7B.
exceptions, 7A.
7B.
So seven,
7B,
yeah,
right.
page
So-
48 or so. So
Yeah.
this one here, B. So on a corner lot, it says blah, 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 frontage on the
Where am I?
street.
This section.
Okay. So on a quarter lot, only one street lot line shall be used for the purposes of measuring minimum lot frontage and setback
And setback
requirements.
requirement. So on a corner lot,
Yep,
you'd call one, so if you're on Washington High Plain,
yep.
and you call Washington your frontage,
Yeah, you can only use that.
that's your setback, but High Plain Street now becomes a side yard.
Okay.
So on a corner lot, you can go really close to it.
Yep.
I think in the definitions, it said it more better that if you're on the corner of a street, you had to be set back on both sides.
So you could have the whole street, Patrick, as in the proper setback, say 30 feet or whatever, right? But then this house only had to be 20 feet, so it's gonna stick out So
Yeah.
it's not gonna be in line with the
Everything
neighborhood
else that you
and
want it to be.
the non-frontage of it. So if we kept it, both the frontage, both sides of front yard,
The front yard setback.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
both would be front yard, which
Okay.
is what no one.
A lot of towns do it.
Okay,
yeah.
so
Yeah.
what's the language you need to add?
That's where your big brain.
I
can give you the dribble.
See what
Um,
Knowles is, see what Knowles is.
Yeah, so that's what it's like.
See what Knowles
If
is.
we lose the setback requirement, the second line, because then it goes, we can keep the rest. On a corner lot, only one street shall be used for the purpose of measuring minimum lot frontage. And all front yard setbacks will be measured off of street lines or,
Oh,
Or
if
any
on a
lot-
corner lot, the minimum frontage, if on a corner lot, which they have an M here, not an N, which is a whole other. On a corner lot. So if on a corner lot, minimum frontage requirement, frontage requirements shall be met, is it maybe met?
oh, or maybe, shall be.
Shall be, see, maybe means that's,
Either one is kind of, will be.
we've had this
Either one.
conversation with her here, what's
You're gonna
the?
lose
Shall
either,
be,
but
shall
it
be.
shall
Met
be.
along both street lines, the
Yeah.
required setback
Yeah.
shall be
Shall
measured
doesn't
from
have
the
any-
line of the street identified as the
You shall
official.
do this, but you don't have to do this, but you shall.
The
do
required
this. There's
setback
no-
shall be measured
Yeah.
from the line of the street identified as the official address of the lot. See, that part doesn't really,
Yeah.
if on a
that-
corner, that last
messes it
sentence,
up.
that, yeah, it doesn't really
The
make
only thing
sense.
that would
Should
apply
maybe
to
just-
is
just for a little
labeling
easier,
of
you
the
think
address.
Yeah, so I
the
don't,
setback
And
and
that's
the
really
frontage should
something
be swapped,
fire department does as much as any.
6 and 7, so
Yeah.
you'd have.
Front first.
well, it doesn't
Yeah,
add
so you
anything
get
to
this
this.
front
The
yard.
Fire
required-
department's
Front
gonna
yard in the
determine
middle of all of the
what's
setback.
Yeah.
Because elsewhere it says that you have to have the same setback on both of the corner streets, right?
So this,
That's what we
which is what we
want.
want.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what we want,
So,
not what exists.
yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure if it's
So-
in the.
In definitions, it goes lot line front, the property lot lining a lot, or sorry, the property line of a lot from a single street right away. In the case of a corner lot or a true lot, at least one front line shall be conformed to the minimum lot frontage requirement. So that's just going on frontage requirement.
Where is this?
This is
I'm
the
looking at lot
definition.
corner, it doesn't
Sorry.
say it.
110, it's.
No,
lots.
those is it, the definition.
Definitions, it's lot line front.
Page 110.
That just says what lot line front, I'm trying to find,
Next page.
I know where it is in my head, but.
A line for the property line dividing the lot. In the case of a corner lot,
Yeah, see,
the lot, at least one front line shall conform to the minimum. Oh, I get it, I get it. It's almost like delete that portion.
Well,
of
no,
lot
because that's
line.
that's frontage, so that's lot frontage, not lot.
In the case of a corner lot or a through lot, at least one front lot line shall conform to the minimum front lot frontage requirement. That's
That's the
frontage,
frontage
that's different, that's
requirement.
not setback, yep,
No, I'm
got
trying to
it.
get the setback one.
So 7D is telling you can choose which one of your two streets.
So
have to-
yeah, so if you're on a corner lot, say,
Setback has to be met.
Yes.
if you have a corner lot,
Right,
you
so-
you can choose as long as you have the frontage, that becomes your front road.
Yeah.
But that means your frontage comes back from that line. That means this turns into a side.
Yeah.
all right, so
On a corner, we want to get it.
I think it should say something like, if on a corner lot, minimum frontage requirements, oh, that's frontage.
Minimum
Oh,
set, front
yeah, if
setbacks.
Minimum frontage requirements may be met along both sight lines.
I think you would just say must be met along
But-
both
yeah.
street lines.
Yeah,
Must be set along both,
Wait, no, we're
Lot
talking
lines
about, are we talking
I
about
had it
frontage
in
or
my
talking
mind,
about
and
front
then I just
setback?
Yeah,
lost
well, I think you're getting mixed up. There's frontage and there's front setback. So frontage is already
Yeah,
defined
but-
and it's
but-
good.
yeah, but this
It's
is
the
set-
setback.
but this is setback, and it says, if on a corner lot, minimum frontage requirements are met, it should say, are met along both street lines, you must have the proper setback as a frontage.
well, no, because we're not
front,
saying, even if one's got the right frontage and one doesn't have the right frontage, we're saying they both should be treated as front lots.
Setbacks,
For
not
front
frontage.
setbacks.
it's front
Yeah.
setbacks.
Frontage must be
well,
met
they
on
said
one
if
or
it-
the other, but not
Yeah,
both.
because we have it in there that if you have frontage on both streets, you can pick which one, what you want to be your address and what to be your front. But if you had a lot that say you're on a corner, say you're on your corner, but your front, you only had, say, 100 feet in front of your house, but you're still North Street, and you carriage lane that had 200 feet in the right, you're still North Street because you're pre-existing. But if you wanted to change your address to Carriage Lane, as long as you got your 200 feet frontage, you can do it.
Yeah.
But if it wasn't, you couldn't do it. So we have a gentleman on Raspberry Lane's doing it.
So this is not really, right,
It's confusing.
setbacks we want the front setbacks for a corner lot on
both sides.
both
Yeah.
sides. So for B, on a corner lot, only one street line shall be used for the purposes of measuring minimum lot frontage,
You
period.
can't add the two together to get your
Right.
frontage, yeah.
However,
have a
front
ton-
yard setbacks need to be accounted for on both
Both
sides.
It
However,
should just say, on corner lots, you must have frontage setbacks on both
Yes,
property lines abutting the street.
front yard setback.
Okay?
I don't wanna get frontage mixed
Right,
up.
right, yeah.
right, right.
And so get rid of frontage altogether. On a corner lot, you must meet the required
Front yard
frontage setback on
It won't be
both,
front, it'd be front yard setback,
your front yard setback.
because frontage is. So I'm saying, if we keep the same B, on a corner lot, only one street line.
I can picture what I want in my mind. but
Yeah, I
can't
got ya.
say- I can't say.
On a corner lot, front yard setback requirements must be met for,
John, you get it?
On both
Yeah,
sides.
Sorry,
John-
I'm just kind
John-
of like
John-
trying to
On
do
both
this
streets.
geometry. I mean, are we just trying to say that the?
Yeah, so
the-
we had this, eventually,
Yeah.
it takes me a while to get there. So front yard setback is setback requirements from a front lot line and from any street line of a corner lot or a true lot. So that's what it originally was, and then we tweaked it in 6. So that's what you want there, Patrick.
where is this?
Yeah, exactly. Setback front.
Setback front. Setback requirement from front lot line and from any street line, corner lot, or through lot.
So that's in our definition. So
Yeah.
then 6, when this 7B was put in, it changed that. So we just need to take out that setback requirements and put
Right.
something like that into it.
Setback required from a front lot line, from any street line.
A corner lot must conform to
But that,
Well, I think it's,
the required frontage setback
On
on
both
both
streets.
sides.
Both sides, yeah.
Front, yeah.
the definition needs to be changed.
no, the definition's right, well, what we want.
Yeah,
The definition references one line.
So, no, setback requirements from front lot line and from street line of a corner lot or a true lot. From any street line of a corner lot.
In the case of a corner lot,
Setback
Right, reading that right?
required, so setback front. Setback required from
Yeah,
a
you're right,
front
it is-
lot line and from any street line,
Any street line of a corner lot.
any street line.
Any street line.
Oh, yeah. So it doesn't conform.
So the front setback is from any street line. So that's what the definition is saying.
which one are you looking at now?
That's not saying
Setback
either or
front.
though, it's from
It's-
any
It's
street.
in,
yes.
Both?
page
Shouldn't be from both.
114, John.
What about the poor guy that has a double?
Should it be from
double
both
There's a
street lines
on
though,
both
corner lot?
sides. Front.
Yeah, so from
Isn't it
any
because
street line of a corner lot. So if you're a corner lot, you only have
There could
a
be,
corner,
yeah.
2 roads.
That says it.
You can't have 3 roads on a
Sure
corner
there are
lot.
Some
True,
places.
but
So it says any street line of a corner lot.
Or a through lot.
Am I reading that wrong, or am I?
No, you're right.
Okay, because what's in my head and what comes out of my mouth usually are 2 different things sometimes.
Setback required
Right,
from
people
any
have to
front lot line and from any street line of a corner lot.
So could we
or
take that wording and go, on a corner lot, only one street line shall be used for the purpose of measuring minimum lot frontage and then we put in, and from any, and a setback requirement from a front lot line,
from
any street lot line on a corner lot.
Setback
Combine 'em.
required.
Yeah.
from On a corner lot, only one street line shall be used for the purposes of measuring minimum lot frontage, period.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
setback required from a front lot line on a corner lot shall be from the street,
Shall be from any
shall be
street.
from any street line.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying.
Front yard setbacks shall be required on.
Any street.
From any street.
On a
So-
any street on a corner lot.
Yes. Let me just work
Yeah,
on
work
write it
your
down.
magic.
It's, I
You can't say both streets, because what if it,
Then
Yeah.
technically it's not a corner lot then,
yeah, but what if there's a street
each side.
on each side of the lot?
Then that's a
and
true
the-
lot.
At the
That's
through lot.
considered a true lot.
True lot. Oh,
So
so
true
that's
lot does-
another definition then?
Yeah, welcome to, yeah.
There
true
is one
lots.
of them.
I
Yeah.
thought we don't have many of
There's
them.
one between Thomas and Benny.
Yeah,
Huh?
There's one
Yes,
between
there is.
Thomas and Benny, it goes all the way through,
yeah.
Oh, really?
yeah.
Okay.
Now, here's the funny part, if you have a true lot in some, like if you go to, say, when I was in Brooklyn, Coolidge Corner, you could have a building that takes up the whole block. So you've got a road, an alleyway, and a road. That's 4 fronts. There's no rear, there's no side, it's 4
You could
fronts.
build a building.
Yeah. I dealt with land that had one front, I think it was 17 rears, 15 sides. Because the way they define it, we're actually pretty good on our lot coverage, and you can build a massive house in this town in a very small lot compared to other towns. But some towns, Wellesley does it, Wellesley on the corner is usually standard is like us, is 30 feet back. But when they do a corner lot, they make you move back 50 feet on each side.
Oh, wow.
They even really push you back in. So every town's slightly
Wow.
different. Brookline, you can have multiple front, you could have 4 fronts. You could have 1 front, 1 rear, I've dealt with. I've dealt house with 1 front, 3 rears. It's weird as hell.
So I kind of want to go back and get some determinations here.
Yeah.
So 6C3, A and B is one subsection. Do we want like 6C4, I'm just throwing out a number,
Yep.
as where we consolidate our corner lot exceptions? Because we have everything kind of broken down. Does it make sense to consolidate so they're all in
Yeah,
one place?
That's what I'm thinking,
So
just
have
to.
corner lot as its own subsection.
Yeah,
All right?
because we could do with all of it, not to make life harder for you, but we could do it all that the first section is all, everything on front yards.
Yeah.
Front yard requirements, front yard setbacks, front yard exceptions, then go to side yards, do all side yards, then do all rear yards, and then do corner lots.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I think
Makes
that's
sense.
the thing. We have corner lot thrown in with every section
Exactly.
where it should be maybe just have its own subsection
Yeah.
of just corner lot
That's what I was just thinking.
exceptions.
Right. Well, and the same with the side yard, because you have side yard on 6, 8, and 9, and 7 is the front yard setback right in the middle.
Yeah.
So it's almost like,
Everything should,
keep all the side yard, I mean, you could have side yard and then have subsections within that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Yeah, I
That's
mean,
it.
yeah.
That makes a lot of sense, and everything's
yard
right there in
exceptions,
front of
side
you,
yard.
not bouncing around, and we could, and then if we had the front yards, we could do the same thing, right?
yeah.
All right.
Oh, that's another one I
Let's-
wanted, just to-
So I'll work on reordering that, and so let's front. So that helps to kind of like keep everything in its.
So which were the other ones combined, moving up to,
So saying,
Well, you see the way
Eight.
setbacks would be 6, 8, and 9? And then you have number
side
7
yard.
is front yards in the middle of it.
Yeah.
So
So
it takes-
combine, just have a headline of, you could have just, number 6 is side yard, and then you could have
7 as corner lots.
all
exception
corner
for
lots.
corner lot, and then setback side yards for others, and then, what's the other one over there? Side yard exceptions.
So you have side yard exception at corner lots as 6 as its own thing. Really just add that as a requirement, as just corner lot. Because side yard exceptions is 9. And then you have side yard, setback and side yard for other uses as 8. It's almost, I get what you're saying, that, so basically consolidate those
Each dimension.
portion to just be,
Yeah.
here's, side yard,
yeah, so
setback
side yard setbacks, side yard
exceptions.
setbacks, side yard orders, and then the number 6 was side yard for corner lots, put that with all the corner lot stuff.
Yeah.
So, wait a minute though. If you look at number 6 now,
Yeah.
Yeah,
do we need that if we change the other language to two side
No.
setbacks? I don't think so.
6 is a very special case.
In the case of a lot.
It doesn't really apply too much. It's-
Two streets and one.
You're familiar with Baker Street in Washington?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, obviously. The one that Conroy owns at the corner there.
yeah,
That is this thing, really. It's a 135-degree angle of the street, basically.
so
two
what
streets.
it's based on is,
Anything
just
less than a
saying
45 degree
that's a
angle.
They're
corner.
both fronts.
and
Yeah,
you have a street that could be like that, and then you have a street that could be curved, because you could have another street coming into it. So say you had a street like that where you have a curve here, that's technically seen as a corner lot. But they're saying if the angle is such an angle, then this whole thing here is frontage. If you're at, as John said, if at 45 degrees, that's what that corner
The
lot is.
opposite yeah.
It's slightly different again, that if you're at less than or you're at 45 degrees, because now again, you know, you're breaking that line. This is your frontage, this would become your side, because it's more defined than this. So that's what that's just saying. But that's defined, that will become your side automatically.
That's
We're just going-
that's the drawing that's on page 110.
Yeah.
The curved here,
Yeah. we get
that's
that
what
there.
that article's about. If it's greater than 135, it's more or less considered a straight line, not a curve or corner.
So is that conforming up there now? Is his lot conforming now?
I think technically it's
Probably
just
close.
under that number. It's very close.
Yeah.
But,
So that's, so for,
yeah,
if your angle's less than that, shown there, so side yard, front yard, because it's such a steep angle, putting the house closer here would not obstruct your viewpoint. That's where on a corner lot, that's what we're trying to figure out, would obstruct it.
okay.
This
yeah.
is such a sweep, it wouldn't affect you driving.
You know, and for all of the intersections we have like that,
Yeah.
it's not worth
It's
changing.
not.
No,
really
leave
worth
it.
doing
It's
much,
very-
yeah.
Right.
It's like I said, I don't know if there's any other intersections
You
like
might
it
be the
here.
only one in town.
I know it's next door to me.
I had one other question that we've come across, just to drag this out and make Patrick angrier at me. For front yard setbacks, we obviously have the, like if you're doing steps,
Yeah.
Exceptions or you?
so front yard.
On your
so
setback
front yard
exceptions.
setbacks, exceptions, yeah. We have like that, if you're in a front yard, you can allow your steps to go into your front yard, it seems means of egress.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of cases lately that has come where people wanted a farmer's porches put on their
You're
house.
talking about projections?
Yeah, the projections.
So they're not front yard setback
sorry,
exceptions.
projections.
Projections, yeah, that is a question,
Did I
so
say
yes.
front
we-
yard? Oh, my bad.
Where-
That's
where
all
is
right.
it?
11.
11.
Sorry, projections, yeah. So you're allowed project, like, so chimneys can go into your setbacks, your eaves can go in, bay windows, things like that are allowed in. And then, obviously, if you have a landing for egressing without no roof on it, that's allowed into your setback as of right. One of the things we've come across, and we've sent to the board a few times, is people have decided their house is nice, but it was built right at either 30, 35 feet. And they're looking for, well, I want to do a farmer's porch in my house. And you're like, well, that's a special permit, you're you're spending a lot of money, you're going to the boards. There is some exceptions that we're thinking about, like, and the boards were in favour of it too, of going for, well, we allow something like, so one that, like, just from my own experience, we had one that for 50% of your front of your house, you're allowed encroach 4 feet with a farmer's porch into your setback. So instead of you doing the whole length of your house, you're allowed to do 50% of it, or you can do 75% or whatever, but you're allowed encroach in your front yard setback as long as it was roofed but not enclosed.
So, yeah, so this is, I guess that second sentence, right? So we have the whole projections, nothing herein shall prevent the projection of any roof, eave, chimney, or cornice encroaching no more than 18 inches into the setbacks.
Yeah.
But uncovered and or closed porches,
I would say,
do we just want to remove the
No.
uncovered? Huh?
the only reason I wouldn't do the uncovered or enclosed porches,
Yeah.
because,
It's not livable.
well, not that, but if you have a deck in your backyard, a rear deck is allowed to go 4 feet into your backyard.
Yeah.
People make that into a sunroom, close it in. I'd leave the uncovered in there for that portion of it,
Porches and decks.
but I put something that, like, maybe change this, I know, it depends what people call
Uncovered
stoops.
enclosed porches or decks,
In the front yard.
or covered covered farmers porches, do we want to?
You could literally
but
say a
it just-
farmer's, like a unenclosed farmer's
Or
porch.
unenclosed covered, because it's technically,
Yeah, unenclosed covered is allowed to project 4 feet into your front
Yeah,
yard
or-
only.
just add that,
Yeah,
because it's
something like
kind of
that.
like unclosed, so yeah. Unenclosed,
Unenclosed
so,
front porch is allowed to encroach into your setback, say 4 feet.
Yeah.
what if
Yeah,
you just
or
said
5 feet, whatever.
unenclosed porches, because it is, so uncovered and or unenclosed porches.
Right,
So
if
this
it's
is for, like-
or
so-
that.
So that means no roof and no sides,
Yeah.
right?
And that was done for
Well, you can
side, if you
either
have a side deck,
unenclosed
if you have a
or
rear
unenclosed.
deck, people will build a deck and then come back after years going, hey, I'm gonna close it and make it a 2-season porch, but it was already in your setback,
Yeah.
so they didn't want that happening. So we'd have to, like, we could leave that section there, but just put in something that front yard, an unenclosed, or a covered, unenclosed front porch is allowed encroach 4, 5 feet into your
The
setback,
40 inches, keep the
48
40.
48 inches,
Yeah.
something like that.
Do you add something in here, or is this getting too into the weeds where at any point that someone wants to enclose something, it loses its protection, or?
Well, no, I think if you
Right,
leave
so
that
if you-
just covered
Yeah.
but not enclosed, front yard porches can go in 4 feet. 'cause
But
that
shall never be enclosed.
shall never, or, yeah, shall never be
So,
enclosed.
yeah, we've had
Maybe
some
add
language like that in
something
like that.
ourselves. But with the stipulation that it will never.
It will never be enclosed.
close.
Because people, not be mean, people do it all the time. They build something, they wait a few years, they'll get fired or something.
I mean, the 18
So
inches,
you-
would be
Chimneys.
worth doing any, for
It's for
chimneys?
chimneys and
Oh.
stuff like that.
Read this to me one more time. So we already have porches on there, so uncovered and or unenclosed. So do you just,
I'd
do you
put-
have covered and or unenclosed? Cause it's a covered,
be
the
one
porch is
or the
covered,
other.
but
It's
it's
a-
not.
Well, that's,
It can be covered, but must never be enclosed.
closed. I'd add another line because right now it's uncovered and enclosed porches, decks, platforms, landings. That's 360 degrees around the house. I just want the front porch, because that's what a few people have come to the zoning board for, and they seem to like it. That,
Porch is.
Yeah, but what if they put a
Isn't-
porch on
porch-
the
porch
side
is a-
porch? What if they put a side porch?
yeah, exactly. Back porch.
Well, it
It's
says
not
it
just
has to be associated with
Yeah, but that's the thing, is that's why I'd like.
Do we define porch?
an egress.
Yeah, some people would want to porch off the kitchen to
Yeah.
be in the back of the house, so you'd have to
Yeah.
come out the side rail.
And eventually,
something
like, honestly, my house, I've never used the front door besides once when I changed it out. I always go in the side of my house.
Wraparound
Yeah.
So I
porch.
put a deck
Yeah.
out there, I put my porch out there, I put a mudroom out there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna come in the side.
Right,
So
right.
I'd keep that in there for that. I just was saying, do we add another section that's saying covered front porches can, or front decks, covered front decks can encroach into the setback 48 inches, but never can be enclosed.
Oh.
So that makes it, defines it as a because that's why everybody's always been asking for, is a farmer's porch to be able to sit out in front of their house.
Say porch though, or decks.
So covered porches may
It's a
extend
porch.
48
Porch.
inches into the
Yeah, porch.
front setback, to the setback, to a setback.
Yeah,
Covered
Into-
porches can encroach 48 inches into a setback, but
can never be
can
enclosed.
never be
Mhm.
enclosed.
Will never be enclosed, yeah.
Yeah, covered porches may extend 48 inches into the setback, into a setback.
Into a setback. Into front yard setback.
Huh?
Into front yard setback.
Well, what about the side?
Well, that's one thing, is most people have always come, that have come for the zoning board have been, they want to put a nice farmer's porch in the front of the house.
Right.
On the side, I wouldn't really just for, you're already allowed to put a deck 4 feet into your side, but if you're saying GR, you're only 10 feet from your neighbour, now you're putting a roof up there. That's it,
Okay, so you want to define front.
just
front
on the
setback.
front of the house, yeah.
Well, this is saying it has to be associated with the required egress, which isn't typically on the side, but
This is, that's landing
typically front
stoops,
and back.
Front of the
steps,
They're exempt,
ramps,
though. They're exempt.
yeah, they're exempt, so they don't need to,
So you could leave that in there,
yeah.
but squeeze this line in
Yeah.
between the two, right?
Covered porches within the front setback may encroach up to 48 inches,
Yeah,
or however worded.
48 inches.
That's enough to get a chair in and somebody to walk by it.
Yeah.
There's somebody sitting there.
Projections itself, though, leave at 18 inches.
Yeah, 'cause that's, the projections are for
That's the timber for-
chimneys, eaves, like people do eaves, big eaves overhangs on the corner end of their house. They'll go into bay windows. That always gets, people build their house up and then decide, I'm changing up my window, I want a nice big bay window. All of a sudden it's sticking into your setback. So that's why that projection lets you go on that.
So my son's house in Norfolk, he has a front door and a side door, the everyday door, but he has no front steps or anything. He has like a farmer's porch that wraps along the front and the side. So to get to the front door, you have to go by the side door to go to the front. I mean, because it drops, because
Yeah.
you know,
Drops
the road
off so
slopes like this,
Yeah.
so, and I think he's already in the setback anyways, you know, but I'm thinking something like that, but you wouldn't want I don't think the side porch would be encroaching to the setback anyway, so,
No, it's only allowed like a little deck or so, but
Right.
not, same with the back.
yeah.
Because again, I think that was intended, the projection was, again, we're going with the uncovered, non-enclosed, is they don't mind you pushing the deck 4 feet in, but if someone does a deck and goes into the rear, then comes back a year later going, oh, now I'm gonna finish it as a 3-season porch, I'm gonna put a roof on it, walls all the way around it.
Yeah.
If that was close to you, now you've gone from a deck with people standing on it to where now you got a building looking at you.
Yeah.
Okay. What else we looking at? So anything within side yard exceptions, that kind of comes up, so that's 9.
Yeah, I think the side yard is good, what we have, because we have the, obviously the decks go in there, and then you have the reduction if you're an existing building with lacking frontage, which we have a lot of houses in this town that have very small
Yeah.
frontage. So I like the way that it gives you those bonus feet to help you out. And it gives you a minimum, the maximum you can go down to.
Our question was, would it appear, would it be easier to simply set lesser setbacks such as 10 or 15 feet? I'm not sure I would do that.
No.
No.
I'm
No, 'cause that's not
agreeing with that
really-
at all. I
no.
don't think.
No, because when.
Because that's not the point of what
No,
this
because
is.
there's 4
Right.
different zones.
Yep.
Like rural, RA, or GR, RA, and RB, and they all have different setbacks, so I think,
Okay.
I like that way.
All right.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I just wanted to back up a little bit. Sorry, we're a little over the place. So 6C5, those are there other exemptions, which is really kind of more or less a reference back to Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 6. And so her initial thing was, would it make sense to move to Section 5, or would it just make sense to remove, because it's just restating something that was already permissible?
All right, yeah, it's stating
It's saying a one family can go anywhere that's legal by the state purposes, right?
Yeah, so does it make sense to even state that, or is it, or say
Well,
other
I mean, that's-
exemptions?
well, I'm saying, yeah, I think, well, I don't know if it's, because that's still in effect, the 55,000, then there's also the new one that, the on-merger law again, that's the
75, yeah.
75,
5,000 and
10,000 with the, but that puts in, you can only build an 1850 home with 3 bedrooms.
So that's the thing, that's like an exception, so that makes sense to either remove it or
This is one that
state back
Petrosi
to-
was violating down in East Walpole.
this one, yeah.
Yeah. When he was trying to do, single families on the Brook Lane /
Oh, as
Ave.
the 40B subdivision?
one of the first ones, one of the later ones he did, he put 24 single families and they're on like 3,500 square foot lots. And he got approval for it, the 40B with that.
Well, 40B, yeah, 40B wipes out all, obviously it wipes out all zoning, so he can,
Well,
Did this-
how can it wipe out the mass zoning though?
so mass zoning under 40B, the only requirement you need to build a house under mass zoning is frontage wise, which is 25 feet.
He didn't have that either.
So state law says 25 feet. But you did off of, so
Yeah, frontage-wise.
this actually is an old law that's prior to 56 that says, basically this is a mass law that says if you can find a lot anywhere in Massachusetts, that all it has is 50, so if you found a lot next door to your house, that's 50 square feet frontage and 5,000 square foot lot size.
You built,
You can build a house with 0 setbacks, 0 lot coverage, there's no zoning whatsoever in this town is wiped out. You don't need, you could cover 99% of the lot with your house. No ifs, ands, or buts. You could build a 5-story building on it. Height requirements also come into play. You can build a monster single family. So that's always been there in law. And then, as Pat said, with the new merger law, there was also like, there's a 50 square foot lot and then a 75 by
7,000.
10,000, I think, square feet law that you can build. You could do the same thing. The governor came back now because on merged lots, but now they put a definition on the 75-foot ones that you can't build a house bigger than 1850 and has to have at least 3 bedrooms in it. Which is funny considering Section 3 says you can't dictate the interior of a single-family home. But they're dictating it, like, contradiction in terms. So that's why this is in there. I think that's why they only put that in, is there's, it's a state law in
So
case
does it
someone.
make sense to, I guess, from the standpoint of, you know, we've had other sections where we, you know, stated back to state law
Yeah.
rather than have it written the way we have it written. Does it make sense to remove it, or does it, other
Well,
exemptions
it
just reference
allows for
state law?
the bypassing of the standard GR lot size. It's saying if you got a small lot, you
Yep.
can build on it. Whereas GR is saying you have to have at least 10,000 and 100 feet of frontage.
Oh, yeah, no, I get that. I guess it's,
So would you,
it's almost like you could have other exceptions, but you just cite the state law.
So there's nothing in here that's not in state law. This whole section is all just a restatement.
this is all unique to us, and this is the one thing that's unique to
Yeah.
the state.
But there's nothing in 5 that is not unique to the state.
That directs you back there?
Yeah.
No, unless you know the 55,000, not be mean, a regular person, if someone came in with a lot, like a piece of land that was, say if you came in tomorrow and said, hey, I have a lot that's 25,000,
Yeah,
my answer to you would be like, go find out when it was created, and has anything ever been done to it?
yeah,
Because you have to predate 1956 for that to be, for that exception to work.
Right.
So, yeah, I think stating 48, section 6 is good
Yeah, that makes sense.
to point you in some direction.
Yeah. I only bring that up because her comment, right? I mean, it's either move it to 5,
Move
and
to
then
5.
she's like, well, do you even really need to have this exception, because it's just.
Because it's an exception, it's, only applies to one very specific.
Specific,
area.
which, and they are
Yeah,
No
few and
use
far
happening in the
between
use
right now.
table.
They're like gold.
yeah.
Yeah.
You just move it to the very end of this section, and just
Yeah.
leave it hit, like, get all our front, sides, corners together and just.
Oh,
Yeah,
in
it
term-
could be
yeah, oh, shit.
relocated.
And
Move
relocate
to
to
end,
the
it makes
very
sense, right,
end.
because it's another.
And then just add in the general law 48, section 6 to it, just to point you in that direction as well. Because as
Should
John.
we leave the, should we leave
And
the
that was
wording
in
as is, or should we just
1956.
simplify, basically?
Simplify it,
So,
I
yeah,
think, yeah.
simplify and then reference
Put
back.
in the 40, section 6, to John's point, there's nothing there that points you,
Right,
if, not being, if a
Yeah.
layman came in with that, like,
It seems like it's an R thing, where
so
it's.
that's
Yeah.
what that
Yeah.
article states, is 1956?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
got it.
so, yeah, section
I
6 is
know,
a
I was
lot.
looking at it, so where were you coming up with that, so?
Yeah,
Okay.
that
Okay.
falls under these
Yeah.
exception lots, it falls under, pre-existing lots, it falls under 6-year stipulation protection and 10-year stipulation protection in that section.
Yeah.
It's got a few different.
So the other one, just to so two last things, all right? So the buffer zones would be a move.
Added into the, yeah.
Yeah, so that's moving from section 5 to section 6. It'll almost be, again, its own, that'd be appropriate as it's a supplemental regulation. Right, so I mean, so if we move buffer zones, that'd be, you know, a new subsection of section 6C. I don't have too much of an issue with the wording of the buffer zones, how it's written right now. I mean, you could argue some of the distances, I don't.
So, I was trying to figure the other day, right, so, so, well, I tried to explain the other day, right? This was the property lines, right? This was on Route 1 behind the Kentucky Fried Chicken and the other mall there, and this is where we had an issue. They wanted to build in this lot right here, right? Okay? Behind this lot was a separate lot that was only like 6 to 10 feet wide. And it was a whole strip that went all the way behind all of these lots.
Yep. It was considered vacant land.
Right, but the buffer,
Yeah.
they said they did not need a buffer on this line because it doesn't abut residential. And we got through, and I'm pretty sure we changed the language. We wanted the buffer from from the zoning boundary, not the property line, okay? So in other words, this lot here would need the 40-foot buffer to the residential, okay? Because it's not abutting the residential. So what we wanted, the 40 feet, to be from
The buffer zone, or the
the
district zoning.
district
line.
zoning.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
see
which
what
we
I'm saying?
have that.
District zone
We
boundary.
have
So,
it.
and
So
I
some
was,
of it is,
I
yeah.
was reading the language, but it didn't hit me. I haven't read it again, but it didn't hit me that. So I just want to make sure that we maintain this for the buffer to protect
Yeah.
the residents, because, I mean,
Yeah, so it has it in,
you know, that was Donnell's, and he
Yeah.
ended up doing it. He gave us the 40-foot buffer, but technically, they didn't have to do it.
yeah, so we do have it that
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I
non-residential
see what
use in
you're
all
saying,
the residential
yeah.
zones or residential districts zoning boundary lines. So that's where the buffer comes, on that, and then you have also the table that breaks it down to if it's a conforming use, if it's a non-conforming use, if you're the central business, if you're the highway, the buffers get bigger. And then we have the one in the GR that I think is, not to mean whoever wrote it, but I think it's the silliest thing ever. You have a 50-foot buffer from, if you're next door to a single-family home in GR, or if you're next door to a vacant lot in GR, you need a 50-foot buffer in a zone that you only need 100 feet to build as frontage. So if you're 50 foot, because you have a single family on each side of you, you can't build on the lot, it's dead.
Sorry, is that within the
So in-
multifamily
in
though, or?
multifamily.
So that's not this.
Oh, yeah, that's one of the buffers that I want to
Yeah.
play with, but yeah.
Yeah.
No, but to Ed's point, we have it here. It says the immediate abutting the district zoning boundary line, so that's still in there.
Okay, good. All right, that's what I was doing. Because we had another issue too with Marini's building up
Yeah.
across from Bristol Square.
Mhm.
So he built that building, but,
There was an RB behind them.
right, and he was using that as his buffer. So I try to make a point that there had to be a note in there that he had to maintain that buffer, because we knew he was gonna come back to try to put one or two houses, another
Yeah.
single-family house.
Yeah.
Huh?
He did, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, he did get it,
Yeah.
right?
But he
But-
has that 26-foot
He has
buffer.
to,
Oh, did he, was he,
He was
oh, he was
required to
able
put
to
the bu-
maintain it? Because the way, not William Street, but whatever that street is that comes
Wendy?
off. Wendy, is it?
Williams and.
No, not Wendy.
right.
Marion, no. Marion?
Marion?
Yeah.
Third Street.
don't
No, I
it's
think Williams, maybe you're right.
But anyways, that
Williams
street
goes up,
came-
Marion comes down this side, that runs into it,
Oh,
that
okay.
you access. Yeah, because it's 24 Marion that he's building, so it's Marion Street.
Okay.
Yeah.
But, because the way Marion came in, it almost came right into the buffer, didn't it?
It came in close to it,
Came close, but
Okay.
yeah, but it was right there at it, because I know,
only like a couple of feet.
because, the buffer zone goes down Marion and actually splits the houses. Because we had a gentleman wanted to build in his backyard. Because remember the guy A1 Auto was doing his buffer?
Yeah.
He went from the district line, which was halfway in under their property, so Marion's buffer goes right through the middle of all those houses on Marion.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because that gentleman had, his buffer was 40 feet, but the 40 feet started halfway in on the property. So it worked out perfect for him.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I knew he was gonna try to come back eventually,
Yeah.
and, I just wanna make sure that
Yeah,
he
it's-
maintained the buffer. I think it was in the decision, like,
All the complaints were about
Was
the
it?
bamboo that was,
huh?
yeah,
all the
the
complaints about
Japanese
the
bamboo.
bamboo or whatever that was growing wild all over the place and invading the neighbors' yards.
Yeah.
Yeah, that bamboo is quick.
Huh?
Yeah, bamboo goes quick.
Yeah. Oh, no.
So overall, I mean, if anyone had any questions about this section, or they want to take a little more time to review it, I mean, I think we all agree moving it to dimensional regs.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Moving the buffer zones to dimensional
5 to
regulations.
From 5 to 6.
Yeah, it was under use.
Oh, it's a
It was in
relocate.
the-
Yeah,
Relocate.
relocate to this section.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't really have much.
Yeah, there's
I
more
think
stuff in
it's
there,
explained
so-
pretty well and they give the table, which makes it a lot simpler. And it also gives the planning board like a right to waive some of the buffers if they desire to it, if you have good reason. So it gives you that good option as well.
so there was a reason, I mean, there was another one, Marini's, project on Plimpton Street.
Yep.
And, were you here then, Jim, when they built the condos here on Plimpton,
Tilton,
Hilton? Yeah. So, the,
Jack was involved, I
the
wasn't.
buffer was right up against, almost right up against the building. They couldn't even put the back stairs or a deck out there. And then he was supposed to, then they, I think they planted grass, and I think the people were using it or something or whatever. But the neighbor didn't want him to enhance the buffer there for some reason. I don't know what. It came in, but,
People do that just to think if they stop them from enhancing it, they'll make them stop or go away.
yeah,
People get the weirdest thing when they think if they do something will stop a project.
because I remember, I think they were trying to build a deck, or they had decks on it, but, you know, small thing for a step going out back, not a
Yeah.
big deck or anything, and it went into the buffer, and you really, well, I suppose the language says you can, well, no, that's into a setback, right?
Into a setback,
Then
yeah,
you can have the
buffers you
steps.
can.
The buffer, you can't do
There is,
anything, right?
Well, setback can be part of the buffer.
Huh?
So your that's thing is your buffer, so like residential, because your buffer can't be more than, or doesn't get added to your setback. So say if you're a 26-foot buffer, your
Right.
setback's 30 feet. If you go 4 feet in, you're still at 26. So I think that's why they came up with 26. So
Okay,
you can't build into the buffer.
Ah,
right,
So that's where 26 came from.
okay.
I don't know.
you did see a curious number.
I forget, I know we had an issue on the buffer on the left side, behind the left side buildings, but I forget,
Before my time.
I
thank
don't know the
God.
particular, I can't, it was too long ago, I can't remember.
Last kind of things, I think if we're getting about, what, 3 hours?
Nine?
Number of buildings per lot, to 6C4,
Yes, let's get rid of A.
get rid of
Where are we?
Yes.
This is
absolutely.
the, sorry, we're backed up again, this is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 page, so 9C4.
Before A, the infamous.
So this allows you to have multiple buildings on a lot within the general residential district, provided it meets the conform to the lot area requirements set forth in 5B13D. I think that's enough eyes.
The whole idea behind one building per lot is really, makes sense.
One building per lot.
Yeah. If you want multiple units, you just build an apartment building. or
Yeah,
condos.
This is one I would fight anybody on, that we have to leave it at multiple buildings on it, and in GR especially. You, like, again, I'll use the point, I know it's a pain, but,
Well, a condo association.
You got condo
A single-family
association,
home can be a
HOA.
condo, a two-family can be a
HOA,
condo, yeah.
if I live near a GR and you have land, so right now we're doing obviously Brook Lane one.
Mhm.
I can guarantee you, and I personally would be that way, if I live there, I'd rather see 15 single-family homes than a 2-story, 3-story building beside me. I 100% would,
Yeah.
not being mean, because that's what GR is designed for
Multifamily.
multifamily and multi-single family, just multiple use, so it can be
Right,
either,
housing
either
side,
or. Could be townhouses, you could build a line of townhouses. There actually is one of them behind it off of,
Yeah,
is it Red something it's called?
something.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
off of
yeah.
Pleasant Street there. That's just a
Red-
line of townhouses.
Redwood Views or something.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it. So that's just a line of townhouses. That's multifamily.
Yeah.
So you have those 3 options. Because I think we should keep it that way, because honestly, you got the MBTA zoning driven down our throat.
Mhm.
We got ADUs driven down our throat. I guarantee the next stop is gonna be like Cambridge, it's gonna be multifamily allowed everywhere. That's my feeling, but
We've always, I mean, me and you have definitely
Yeah.
talked about the fact that the GR is the most diverse district, and it's also the smallest.
Smallest.
And so, and it's also
Can't be used.
all built out, really.
Yeah.
And so there's not a lot of provisions in there for no new development, and that's just, I mean, that's just because
Yeah.
it's an old area of
Yeah.
town, right? It's, East Walpole, South Walpole mostly, a little bit of
Yeah.
downtown.
But
But, this option allows for, I guess, the ability to have a denser development, but
Yeah.
also to have a development that provides a little more diverse housing stock. And that's the whole name, I mean, diverse is just basically saying rather than, I guess, single family, two family, three family, or more, or apartment building, I can have something a little bit
Yeah.
more.
Like honestly, you could,
No.
so, again, I'll always go back to, I'd rather live, but that's a personal choice, but I'd rather in GR live beside, say, 15 single-family homes with their own little driveway, their own garage, their own little lot, than say, I could do 5 3-families there,
Yeah.
which is allowed there, but I'd rather not live beside 5 3-families, 5 3-families stuck in there,
Yeah.
that's towering above my house.
And those also cater to people that, only because it's all one ownership of the lot, right? You own
Yeah.
the building, you don't own the lot, so people also look at it as in, well, I can live in an apartment building and have someone, take care of the lot if I have like an HOA. Or I can live in a single-family building and then someone else, again, you pay, taking care of the yard, because it's
Yeah.
not, it's not, doesn't.
And you get that
Well-
single, because again, you can play around with it, because again, if you're doing, say, single-family homes, it's you could do a small one, a bigger one, you can play around with it, but you could decide, okay, now I'm doing 15 units, I'm gonna do a huge monstrosity, I'll do a 15-unit building, I'm gonna put an interior pool, I'm gonna put a gym in there, I'm gonna you could put a ton of stuff in there and make the building even bigger, because now it's one building with multiple stories. GR is, most of it, majority of it butts single-family homes, single-family districts, small bit in the centre of town here, obviously, right across the road here is GR.
Yeah.
I'd rather see, there's 2 families across the way, I'd rather see single families, 2 families on this street across from Town Hall, from the firehouse, rather than someone putting up a 3-story building, because no one likes the big buildings in town here, in the centre of town. Now you're gonna start putting 3-story buildings, clusters all over the place.
Yeah, townhomes, to your point.
Yeah, I
It'd
prefer,
be more of a gradient in
yeah,
terms of the density.
Well, I think the craze now is these standalone condominiums,
yeah.
freestanding, sharing the
Anything.
building with somebody else.
Yeah.
And I wasn't involved in it, but I know right up here on Stone Street, after Center Lane, there was a lot of pushback on the houses that went in the back there.
Oh,
And
really?
they had multiple properties. I think it came out good, and it's,
Yeah.
and it almost conforms to this, that it blends in with the neighborhood, and it looks like it belongs there, so it doesn't look out of place.
Yeah.
I remember we were doing a project or something, then somebody came in and referenced Riverwalk down there.
Oh, yeah.
And the butter, it was another project we were doing. Yeah, and how did you ever allow those houses down there to be so close? You can't, you can reach out and touch the next one. Well, they were condominiums and they're freestanding ones, and.
Yeah, you literally.
Is that an AQV though? Or
Huh?
No, it wasn't.
No,
I don't think so.
No, that was, I
Because
can't
that is
remember.
age qualified, right? Am I thinking of
Yeah,
the
it's
right
age
place?
qualified.
Yeah.
But actually, they came in with a thing, I think it was before me, I don't know if I was on it or not, but I remember, that was like, they thought they picked out the only place within a certain distance from the railroad and the water and stuff like this, and ended up being like 3 other places in town, but they thought they were gonna be
Unique.
distinct, unique in that thing, but they found other places, but these standalone condominiums now, I mean, I had some friends, they said they were downsizing, and they went over to Norton, and they had a freestanding, I think the place was close to 4,000 square foot, a standalone condominium
Is that the
home.
one off of, is that 123?
Huh?
Is that
Yeah,
123?
I think so,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
You got the breakfast place out front?
um,
The right ones?
I think they since
No.
moved,
All right.
it ended up being too big for them, I
I
think, but, they were all big, they were huge over there, and I said, this is a condominium, so.
Yeah. But it's like I'd rather, like Renmar, actually, just not to beat a dead horse on my point, but Renmar is doing an 8 qualified village, it's gonna be 100 single-family homes. I think that will look, I'd rather that beside me than something like Pennington over there with 3 4-story buildings.
Yeah.
If I had a
Yeah.
choice between GR, I'm gonna go for more of a neighborhood subdivision style than I would honestly, but that's a personal choice.
Yeah, well, they had a lot of emptiness around them too, so they
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
able to, they didn't have neighbors to have to worry about too, yeah.
It's like, if
And
you-
it was
Oh, it's way
set
up.
up too.
Yeah,
So
well,
they
that's,
didn't really
it's
have-
just to compare, like, I know they're apples to oranges, but that's an AQV. Pennington was kind of an AQV, and they're two different styles. Which would you rather, personally, if I'm gonna retire, if I haven't been killed,
Not even close.
I'll be
I-
fired
well,
long
no,
before I
I
get to
didn't mean the
retire.
retirement, I meant the comparison.
Oh, yeah, but that's it, if, okay, that too, I'm not in close either.
Yeah.
I just look, I'm only 21 really. But just to give them to comparison, which would you rather live beside, an estate of single-family homes or 4 buildings?
Yeah.
Personally, I'm gonna go with the
It also
single-family
depends
homes.
where you are, right? I mean, that location is in a, is that rural zoning out there, or is
Yeah.
it kind of like a mix? Well, actually, that,
Well, it's
not even-
LM.
yeah, that's a whole mix.
Well, that's 3.
But that is more, I guess if you're looking at it
Isolated.
as just, you know, a layman
Yeah.
or someone walking by, there's a lot more,
Yeah.
you know, there's farms nearby,
Yeah.
it's a lot more larger lots, whereas down here, it's closer to the downtown,
Yeah.
so it is much more of a kind of a denser.
Denser, yeah.
development.
So it's like spread out in our GR.
Yeah.
If
The
you have
GR
that
is the
choice.
only district that allows for diversity
Yeah.
in SOC, so if that's the case, then
Yeah.
you have rural, you have RBRA, that's the majority of residential, and that's all pretty set in stone, single family.
But that's, as I said, like, yeah, Pennington is built here, it's more down, but not be mean, John, but to your point, you said, oh, you shouldn't have multiple buildings on a lot. Then those 4 buildings would be combined into one monster building.
Oh,
So that's why I'm like, it's better off with multiple
That's different
buildings than
rates,
one.
though.
That's where I'm coming from, just from that point. That's
Yeah.
why I like the multiple buildings on a lot. It gives you that,
Yeah.
it might be clustered, but it gives you more of a feel of single-family neighborhood
Yeah.
than a 4-story apartment building. Like, I'd feel more at home there than I would with a 4-story. I hate condos anyway. I gave up on them years ago.
I guess we're getting at, and I agree, is that this is only impacting really just one area in town. It's the
Yeah.
only area in town that allows for this type of
Development.
development.
Yeah.
And does it just add variety, right? Someone can come
Give
in,
an
they
option,
can try to
yeah.
do a multifamily, they could try to come and do a 2-family, 1-family, 3-family.
Yeah.
They can try to do a condo development like this where you have
Yeah.
multiple one.
Because we had that guy that talked to you from, was it, remember he does them small single-family, like 1,200 square feet, like, that's a nice development. So
Yeah,
like,
it's,
that's
and
nice.
it's a different type of development.
Yeah.
That-
And again, our GR is pretty well clamped down. I'd rather give more options, because again, we got the MBTA, we got the ADUs being shoved down our throat by the state. I'd rather give the town some choice of, if we're going multifamily, give us a choice.
Yeah, that's like the, I know it's getting late, we're going down a different whole thing, but like, when we're talking to the state about the MBTA, and they came up, and that's really kind of like, oh, multifamily isn't just multifamily, it's this and that, and this and that. But I think we know from the standpoint of what's, I don't know, I guess in theory, multifamily can be a lot more diverse,
Yeah.
but in actuality, sometimes you are dictated by the market, right? And if
Yeah.
it's in the downtown, people aren't looking at this.
The newer generation.
Unfortunately, they're not looking at the little, something like this in 64A,
Yeah.
where something's a little bit more of kind of like a little village feel,
Yeah.
especially if it's a smaller location.
Yeah.
And so that's why we got kind of,
Big
more, well, technically nothing's been developed under the
Yeah.
MTA, but in general, smaller lots, denser area, whereas the GR, you have that opportunity to actually do much more diverse
Yeah.
housing. Okay.
You know, as far as the ADUs, my only thing is, I'm not in favor of it in all areas, but I could live with it, but not being owner occupied is the one that really gets me. I mean, you can almost go down the street and see what houses, you could pick out houses that it's not owner occupied or places,
Yeah.
I mean,
that's like an
it's just
example
not
of-
taken care of, and there's no pride in where they live. I mean, it's just a fact, and, but the thing is, I don't mind this, as long as it's not a matter of right, you have to go by a special permit.
Yeah.
My thing is, the zoning board, how much, I guess, power do they have to control it, so could,
well, you have to go
I
back
mean,
to
did
the
they give in to the,
state.
what, huh?
You have to go back to the state, and this 40B is killing everything, yeah.
So
Well, I mean, not a 40B, but I mean, so like, say Pennington
Straightforward
over
G,
here.
yeah.
Like Pennington up here, I mean, how did they get, what is it, 5 buildings there? Or 4?
4.
4.
But that was an AQV kind of slight bit different.
This
But-
is,
That was
Okay,
the
okay, the
other
But-
AQV,
Yeah,
okay,
but
but,
this would be, This will go through the zoning for the use, and then they go to planning board for site plan.
This, yeah.
Right.
So there is good oversight on it.
This also goes back to, all right, I know we're getting late, but something like this, I know it's, goes through the zoning board for the use.
Right.
But it's always gonna need to go through site plan review too,
Right.
which almost makes me feel like it should all be through planning board if it has to go through site. Anything, that's my only thing, and anything that's a use that also should be dictated through,
Yeah.
anything that is a use-related special permit that also is more than likely gonna need site plan review, while you bounce in between boards.
Boards, yeah.
I feel like it should all be with.
That's a
So,
great
what
point.
we need to talk about.
That's, now
use,
we're,
though,
we're
but
looking,
it-
now we're talking about use, so
Well,
we're in a whole
that's
different
like
section.
highway business
Yeah.
district.
Yeah.
If you're in a recharge area and you alter your building, you have to go to the zoning board first, then you're going to planning board. But if, like Car Barn was
Well,
brand new,
Yeah,
that went all to planning board.
Yeah.
They done the recharge area and the site plan all in one,
yeah.
to that point, which is cleaner and easier.
Yeah, because it was, yeah, exactly, it was all connected to one. But now we're talking about.
So, but you say use, do you mean the type of residential use?
Yeah, so
Well,
like this,
yeah,
but
you
you
said
you
that.
have to get the
Which type
special
of
permit.
residential?
Not
AQV,
type, no. So when you go for a special permit, it's general residential is the use, multifamily that's the use. So you go to the zoning board, you need a special permit to show you have the lot size, you got the front, you got to show that you meet all the zoning criteria. Then they approve it, then it goes to the planning board for site plan approval.
This is also something too, where it's like, if you have it, you really should be granted it, except for the whole portion that's a little bit subjective, which is, as she writes in here, for the purpose of this section, only neighborhood, oh, I'm sorry, one second. May allow special permit for more than one principal building on a lot where the applicant has also shown that the design and placement of the buildings will be in harmony with the general character of the
That's in
neighborhood
harmony?
entrance. Well, that one's an
AQV.
AQB, that's a whole different thing.
That's all it is.
But like, that's very, that language is so subjective.
Yeah.
And, she adds that's why I guess she adds the next sentence, for purposes of this section, only neighborhood shall include any property immediately adjacent to or across the street from the subject property, provided the adjacent properties are within 300 feet of the subject property. So I guess what she's trying to add by that line is, it keeps that subjective language, but it kind of, all right, it
Explains it
explains it like, you gotta look at what's
Across the street and
squarely
around you.
it. Does it
Yeah.
look similar to the
Yeah.
buildings around it?
So that's where, not to go back to, but that's where Brook Lane would come into play. It's surrounded by either small townhouses or single-family homes. So that would be in conformity by going, rather than putting a
Well, if
multi-story
it was in
building.
conformity, it'd be designed, a bunch of capes and ranches as opposed to huge colonials.
Those are issues.
Yeah.
Yeah. But,
But yeah, no, I, again, that's my, again, it's
Yep.
my opinion, and it's a kind of a personal thing too. In
Yeah.
GR, I think we need to keep more variety as much as we can in GR, to use our GR so we don't get trampled with 40Bs and we don't get trampled with everything else through state zoning. That if we give GR and we give you the options of townhouses, single-family homes, 3-story buildings, we give you that option across the board.
Yep.
I think it's better, more protection for the town.
So you're thinking if we leave it or
As-
whatever,
Yeah,
they would go with this rather than pursue the 40B or something like that, right?
yeah,
well,
because
we've had this already,
We've
and
had
they've
2
been
cases.
denied, and we've had,
And we got
Ponset
it
Village,
driven down our
Brook
throat.
Lane, where they went through that process, they were denied, and they
Heroin.
came back as 40B.
Yeah.
So, but that's,
So
yeah,
were
that's
they
it, that's
were
just
they
a,
turned down, were they turned down at the zoning
they
board?
were turned down at the zoning board.
And they got approval for 44 units originally.
Who's this?
Brook Lane.
Brook Lane was,
He went
it
up
was
to 40.
originally 14, was denied for 14, came back as a 40B, was approved, I think they had the Pell for 36,
And then he
got approved for
jumped-
32, then he wanted to modify it, I know the whole history.
He jumped up to
And then he
40.
jumped up to, 36, then 40.
Then 40, okay.
And then it became a 20-unit subdivision, which was something just completely out of the blue.
True.
And then eventually he was like, oh, no, I want to go back to
And got approved.
the zoning,
So how many's you got there?
15.
15
So
15?
single-family homes
Oh,
instead of, could have been 40.
7 years, and we've increased 1 unit in a lot of time.
Well, I've always said, if the developer comes in with a plan, with the right plan right away, it goes through.
Well, that's
It's
always
when
the
he
case.
has to do this, oh, I wanna do this, no, I can't do this. I wanna do this, no, you can't do this.
Well, now we're getting into specifics, but I
Yeah.
hear you.
Well,
Well,
There was a
that's- it's-
development,
Yeah.
a couple houses from me, whatever.
Yep.
There was a single family and there was on a good sized lot, so he split it into two.
Yes.
And, you know, to do that, he had to put in a road.
Mhm.
And if they had done everything right, they probably would have been done in like 4 months. It took him a year and a half because he kept goofing and making mistakes.
Yeah, to that point, yeah, if a developer comes in or being
Yeah.
a pain, I can understand it taking a year and a half. But if you come in with property and going, hey, I can do 14 houses on it,
Mhm.
and he gets denied for no reason or don't like you, and they come back with a 40B, it's happened in every town around.
So, well, this is
They'll drive it down your throat.
this is the thing about something like that, right? So we're allowing this by special permit, but we also have the provision of a land area requirement, right?
Yeah.
It goes back to our argument about 2 families and 3 families.
Exactly.
If 2 families and 3 families are only allowed in the GR, and we already require that you need to have a certain amount of land area and require that it needs to be on sewer, why is there also an
Special permit
arbitrary
for.
special permit?
Mhm.
Other than the fact that with the argument, we brought this up, when we brought this up last time, it's like, oh,
Two
well,
families allowed in northern GR. No?
technically ADUs are allowed.
ADUs,
Yeah.
yeah. No, so in GR, it starts off, you need 15,000 square feet for a single family.
Mhm.
Then you need 20,000 square feet for a 2-family, then 10,000 after that adding on. But once you get to 2-family, you have to go for a special permit.
That's right.
So which is, if you meet all the requirements,
Why do you need a
why do
special
you
permit?
need to go for a special permit?
Mhm.
You'll be going for site plan in most of them,
I think we should
that
tackle
should
that
cover you,
again.
but why are you going for a special permit for something, you meet all the criteria?
Yeah,
And
it's a
then
matter of right anyways, right?
And not be
So
mean,
the-
the
Something
last
like-
few that have gone have been sent back as 40Bs and got driven down our throats. Other towns have,
But this is another example of that. I mean, now we're
In the
talking about use right now, but this is another example of that where it's like, all right, well, if they meet the land area requirements,
why are you making them jump through extra hoops?
why do we have the whole, because really the only sticking ground here that the board has is the
Yeah.
whole, you know, fit in harmony with the character of the area, which I
Yeah,
hate, I hate that language because it's
Substantial, it's subjective.
subjective,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, Jim, you know the same with me. I want a line in the sand, you know, to do it.
Yeah.
You can't leave anything up to interpretation or
No,
like,
no.
feelings or something like that, you
Yeah.
know, or your, what you consider the harmony, right? That's a crooked line to me.
Yeah.
It's so easy to enforce
Yeah.
anything with that line in the sand. I mean, it's either black or white, right? So,
If it's
and-
prescriptive,
yeah,
there shouldn't be any wiggle room.
Yeah.
It's, you have
Right.
it, here's your permit.
Yeah.
Or really, if you have it, there shouldn't be a permit, you should just go to site plan.
site plan, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Because like that's it, we always get that with the noise ordinance, it's a general bylaw in town.
Yeah.
But our noise ordinance says, what is a nuisance to you at 150 feet?
Yes.
There's 5 of us here, everyone's gonna have a different thing what nuisance is. Like, how do I even enforce that going, well,
150
yeah,
feet.
you
Well,
find
I
a
can't
nuisance, I'm
see it.
finding
Yeah,
it.
his
I'm gonna take my
lawnmower
tape
going at
measure.
7 in the
All right, I need
morning.
my surveying equipment,
Why
so I
is his
can measure
police
it.
blower going?
Yeah,
Yes.
so that's it, like, it's very open-ended. So to that
Right,
point, yeah.
right.
So,
And that's what frightens me. So when I was, a special permit, all right, so what are the requirements to,
It's very similar to a single-family home realistically, which we do as of right.
yeah,
To Patrick's point, I think GR should be allowed as of right if you meet all the criteria in our section 6, and you meet all the requirements, dimensional requirements, because then the only thing you're going for then is you're going to site plan approval.
I agree with that.
That's what it should be locked
Yeah.
in or that way. Because again, we
would
have,
say though, I guess not to say that's not a good idea. It goes back to, you know, the changes we're making here are certain to clean up.
yeah,
And we just already talked about something with the CBD, trying to change the height, so that is
Yeah.
much more of a kind of like a,
straightforward.
And
amendment, a change that's like being changed to a policy. So changing this from special permit to right, by right is a policy. Not that I disagree with it, but is it also kind of, are we lumping too much in with the article to make a change like that? Or am I just
Yeah.
overthinking it? Because I do,
No, I think that's right.
right, I think some of this, we want to just be, the purpose is clean up.
That would be a debate at town meeting.
That would be a
Yeah.
much, yeah.
Yeah.
And it also ties back to chapter 5, because you're gonna have to change the use table.
Yeah.
So you combine so the next round, we could put those two together and see
It
how.
might be better to do
Well,
that
that'd be,
for section 5, or as its own standalone article eventually. I mean, granted, I don't wanna kick things down the road. It's just one of those things, I need to point John, and I think just in general, it's like, how controversial do we wanna make this? I mean, zoning's always gonna be controversial, but ideally, the changes for at least this process is based on cleanup and organization and improving.
You don't want to have cleanup voted down because other things are attached to it.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
um,
Off target,
Yep.
kinda, I had a question, concerning ADUs.
Mhm.
Can an ADU be built in and of itself, or does it always have to be linked to an
think it can
existing
be.
house?
Has been tied back to a principal structure.
Yeah.
So that
I was
you
just thinking of like a little lot like this, can you
Yeah.
build a little house?
No, it always
it has
says,
to be tied back
yeah,
It always has to
it
be-
always relates to the principal dwelling. and
on a lot,
almost
so
everything,
someone,
yeah.
so it has to be a lot too, so like in GR, so take Brook Lane, obviously it's the most up-to-date one, he's 15 houses there. He couldn't come in back and go, hey, I want 15 ADUs. Subdivision, different, because is individual lots, but something like that in GR, you can't do that. You won't be allowed to do all that.
Well, if you wanna allow a compact development,
Yeah.
right? So I mean, that's something, that's kind of, that's almost like this as well, the whole number of
Well,
buildings on a lot.
could
Technically,
he
he's
have-
probably
he
in
almost could've-
violation down there, because 64A is supposed to be on one lot, and he doesn't have one lot there, he's got 4 lots.
He's 4
Where-
lots, but
where's that?
once,
3 lots, or 2 lots.
yeah, but under section 8, and when you buy property and you do development, or you do, say you build on it, they automatically merge. So you can say all the lots, so, Southridge isn't it, on South Street?
Mhm.
He's on 2 lots, but he's not, he's on one, because the building, because I remember I looked up the file, 2 predecessors ago, Dave Norton, had a question, file anything,
I know he filed some originally, he did the,
file anything,
I know he filed some originally, he did the.
he probably done 6 ways from Sunday, no.
Who are the four
Never
lots,
had it
the
in Brook
Brookfield down there, is
Yeah.
that what he's saying?
No, but merger law comes together, Burns Ave, Brook Lane now, Burns
Okay,
Ave.
so he only had the 4 lots there,
He has 4 lots, he owned the 4 lots.
He had 4
but he
lots.
combined them
but-
together, and now he's doing this.
Yeah.
He added
So-
a 5th lot,
I mean,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Under
in your
merger law.
case, he probably could have built a house and an ADU on each lot.
No, so,
No,
so,
no,
Well,
if
they
he
wouldn't
had,
have frontage.
if he had 4 lots and,
well, no, he's 4 lots that are so so this is Burns Ave, so you had the original house here,
yeah,
then there was a house here, and then there was a house here on Brook Lane. He bought this, but there was a lot here, and there's a lot here, and a lot here. These were all landlocked, so they were dead lots. So he just bought all the land together, and once you buy them all and apply for something,
they
they
merged.
automatically merge, because he needs all that land for the 16 houses, so they automatically merge under section 8.
but say he could have put a paper street in there, he could have made 4 lots, and then he could have put like a building,
He'd
a
have
principal
to,
dwelling and an ADU in each one.
no,
No. he would
so
have
the
to
problem
do
would be, he'd have to create a subdivision. Because
Okay, yeah.
because coming to Brook Lane, you just have the
Yeah.
width of the road, and Burns Ave is only a certain width of a road, so he has the private way that was to the house originally. You can't use this as frontage because it's too small, you would have to put a road in with your cul-de-sac and start getting your frontage off of this. So somewhere who, like, financially, he could have done, yeah, could he have done it with subdivision control? There's a lot of wetlands up there too, which kills a lot of land.
Much.
He probably could have done 4 houses,
Oh, yeah, that was
but
the street.
he has potential doing 15.
Yeah,
And right now
close
they're
to
going
the-
for
close
1.2
to a
million.
union and then behind it, which is just trap
We're
crazy
going
money.
through Union.
But people are
I'm not sure where it
paying
goes.
1.2 million for them.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
All right, just, I think, our next meeting is July 16th. I have a good idea, obviously, we have our changes here. What the goal is gonna be for that meeting is both the change to 6, and then the previous changes to 7, not 7, 8,
Eight,
9. Reformat into what would be more or less draft, articles. So right now, these are, I mean, obviously, these are kind of draft articles, but they're basically a breakdown of the changes, so how they'll look, hypothetically, if we're brought to town meeting, so.
Yep.
That will be, I guess the goal for the 16th is just that we'll have that further refined review, and then be able to kind of go through all 3 again, just to tighten them up as much as we can.
And I've
And,
got, I think, 3 towns have come back to me with their parking regulations, that Sarah at the last meeting asked about. I've got about another 6 out there, so as soon as I get everybody's, I'll do up a folder of all the parking requirements to see how it looks towards ours, and I'll send it to everybody and get it out before the next meeting.
Okay.
Or bring it to the next meeting, one or whichever way I can.
Yeah,
do it.
that's a big one, right, in terms of
Also, I'll get whatever because other town has for resident. I asked the guys to send me, just make it easier on me, that a breakdown of what the residential is strictly and what the commercial is strictly. So I don't have to go searching through it to break it up. So 3 guys have got back to me with good, so some stuff, so hopefully I'll have about another 4 of them, 5 maybe towns. As soon as I get it, and I'll get it broken up, I'll send it to everybody.
All right. Take a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you.
See you.